here we are, back. Anyway, thanks for being here. If you're here, we are gonna do the all black everything round table. There's no worries though, no hurry. There's no black people here yet. So what do? We will need some news stories. That's why I didn't hurry here, because black people aren't gonna show up. Fine, possible. But what do we got here? Two top border patrol officials who part of the Mexican tequila mogul are now under investigation. That doesn't sound too bad though. Yeah, you have ties with wealthy Mexican tequila maker. I don't know. I guess it depends. Or actual corruption. I mean, like I don't know why you can't partner with a Mexican tequila. Why would that actually be a problem? I'm actually curious, but this is gonna be a long story. Probably gonna be pretty long. I kind of want to know, why is that a problem? Alright, so top border officials on investigation, part of the Mexican tequila maker who hoped to make a border patrol branded tequila. These were what? They wanted to make a border patrol branded tequila. That's an idea. These are familiar with the probe told NBC News. The sources said the relationship between distiller Francisco Javier Gonzalez and Border Patrol Chief Jason Owens and Rio Grande Valley Border Patrol Sector Chief Gloria Chavez has raised questions about whether the officials disclosed their contact with a foreign national, requirement for those who receive top security clearance. And whether they okay, or whether the officials disclosed their okay, all right. So you have to disclose your contact with a foreign national. Any foreign national? Foreign national? Huh. And whether they accepted anything that could be a violation of ethical rules of the Customs and Border Patrol Office of Professional Responsibility. The agency's internal watchdog is investigating. In photos posted on social media this February, Owens and Chavez were seen in Jalisco, or Jalisco. I'm assuming it's Jalisco because it's in Spanish. Mexico, with Gonzalez at Tequila Casa de los Gonzalez. His family's distillery complex. Their relationship stretches back to at least July 2023 when Gonzalez hosted a party for Customs and Border Patrol Protection Leadership in Laredo, Texas. Two Department of Homeland Security officers. Gonzalez is the grandson of the founder of Don Julio Tequila, okay, a major international brand. His family remains prominent in the industry. Okay. According to sources familiar with the probe, at some point Gonzalez and Border Patrol leaders discussed making a Border Patrol brand tequila for the 100th anniversary of the Border Patrol to be celebrated at a multi-day event in El Paso, Texas later this month. The Border Patrol Tequila project has been shelved amid the ongoing CPB investigation, these sources told NBC News. Alright. But then there's a bunch of statements from various people like, we didn't do this, so whatever. Bunch of statements. Then this now raises a million red flags for appropriateness of government contractors vetting their public sector customers. The new allegations are the latest controversy in a tumultuous year and a half for the nation's largest law enforcement agency. In January 2023, Tony Barker, acting chief of law enforcement operations, abruptly resigned amid allegations he pressured female employees for sex. Yeah, that's gonna happen. February 2024, Border Patrol Second Command Joe Martinez retired amid allegations of sexual misconduct with female employees. Okay. A whistleblower report that same month questioned why CBB's chief medical officer tried to order fentanyl lollipops for a mission providing security. What? The UN General Assembly meeting in New York in the fall. Fentanyl lollipops. The top side seemed to be tried to order fentanyl lollipops for a helicopter mission. This was alleged after Eastman was already under investigation for narcotics for a friend who worked as a chopper pilot. Fentanyl lollipop. Is that a thing? Like, I'm just like trying to wrap my head around that. That's a thing? Fentanyl lollipops. The more you learn, I mean. There's some black people who showed up, so we can get started, but look into this. Thought. Like cocaine, fruit roll-ups. Is that a thing? I don't know. Maybe.
I didn't know that the Ring of Power I didn't know that was even in the same universe. So that they're like connected.
It's in the same universe, but the problem with the Rings of Power is the Rings of Power. They were told that they were able to use the appendixes from the from the Return of the King, and they're able to use some of the background information in the forewords written in the first 6 books, which are the Lord of the Rings, and some of the Hobbit's tales as well. So they didn't have permission to do a lot of stuff, but what they had permission to do, and what they had permission to find, to make a story, they had more than enough to make something that Lord of the Rings fans would actually approve of and be happy of, and they completely went the other direction on it and butchered the whole thing so badly that the Tolkien estate essentially doesn't want to give anybody any more rights to it at all.
So yeah, I learned something new there. And then 2, which is probably one of my hottest movie takes. Even though I'm not surprised it is, but I think that objectively it is. I think The Hobbit's a better series than the original trilogy.
And that is a very objective take. The Hobbit, by most of Lord of the Rings nerds, is not as well liked as the first trilogy, and mostly because they're written for 2 different things. The Hobbit is what Tolkien wrote first, but he wrote it as a children's story to his son. So that's why The Hobbit is a lot more fun. The things happen like them flopping in barrels and riding down on the river stream. That stuff doesn't happen in Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings was much more serious, and Lord of the Rings, it gets better for readers than it does for people who actually view the movies, because Lord of the Rings is much more serious and has a lot more going on in it, in the books that tie into everything else Tolkien. Whereas you could take The Hobbit and make it its own thing, completely separate from Tolkien's universe, even though it's a part of it. But you could take it and completely separate it from Lord of the Rings, and it would still stand up on its own, because it was written before Tolkien had any of these ideas of combining everything. So it stands on its own. The problem with it is, you really didn't need to stretch it into 3 movies. The Hobbit is a very short book.
They should have been 1, but like, hey, they wanted money, so they put in a 3.
Loved it.
That was,
but maybe it's because I watched it when they were all out.
Watching,
I mean, I love them too. I watched all of them. I just think that if they were going to stretch them into 3 movies, they should have expounded a little bit more. I mean, I know they didn't have a lot because they're not allowed to use the Silmarillion, which is stupid on the Tolkien estate's behalf, because the Silmarillion is what people have been waiting for. That's where all the juicy stuff is, and what would have filled in a lot of the gaps and the holes and a lot of the storytelling. But if they were going to go that route, I mean, like, say for instance, Desolation of Smaug. Yeah, you meet Smaug towards the end of the movie, and you're preparing him up to be the big bad. And then in the very next movie, Battle of the Five Armies, you kill him off within the first 15 minutes of the movie, and very anticlimactic for that setup. When you could have finished that in the end of Desolation of Smaug, and had the third movie be all about the War of the Five Armies.
I did not know you were that big of a fan, but clearly you know your stuff.
Oh, I love Tolkien. Tolkien's who he's one of the authors that I emulated a lot with my writing style.
How are y'all doing, black people? You having a good week, man?
going on, my brothers? It's an
Chilling,
excellent.
chilling.
I like that shirt, Swerve.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Took a
What's that?
drive.
Yeah.
How's my week been?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, make it about yourself, Don.
Well, anyway, we are. Dream is going to be late. Hopefully, it'll be here, and I don't have faith that Joe Lewis will show up. So we'll uh keep it pushing since this is probably what we'll have for a while. Um, thanks all for being around. This is All Black Everything on Table, which we have Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. We've got a great group of guests here. Thanks for being here, Bam.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to be back. I know we had to take a week off, but we're right back at it. Coming back strong.
Next we have DeAndre Pace, who hasn't been here for a long time. We've missed you, friend.
I have been busy. I mean, I know the last time I was on, I had just got over a sickness, and I finally figured out what it was that had me down too. Apparently, somehow I managed to catch E. coli, norovirus, and rotavirus all at the same time. So it was a rough patch, but now I'm happy to be over that and everything, and glad to be back. It's been I I won't say it's been rough without you guys, but it has been missed. I've been missing this entertainment.
Oh, thanks so much for being here. Next we have our friend Swerve. Swerve, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me here, man. It's been what, a couple weeks. I'm excited. I'm at the edge of my seat to have a constructive conversation, and if it ain't gonna be like that, I'm still ready to argue. Uh, it's a good night. It's a good night for hip hop. It's a good night for Black people. So let's get to it.
All right, and finally we have our friend Don Champlu. How are you, friend?
I'm good to be here. I feel good to be here. Prime, thank you as always. And I need this because talking to you guys, and it's a good break from the mundane of the work life that I live. So, I'm glad to be here, and I'm ready to have some fun, but also take it seriously because this is something that you know, it's gonna be a good talk. Yeah.
So I had something that I'm actually glad to say it while Dream's not here because I know he would love to bite his teeth into it. Um, I'm gonna pause that. I don't think it was weird, but I'm gonna pause it anyways. Just didn't feel right. Um, have y'all seen the little clips of the teacher who was getting his hair unbraided?
No.
The
Okay.
teacher.
Drop
Well,
it.
yeah, I'll drop it. But basically, it's a black teacher. Looks like in a predominantly black school.
Insane.
He during the last 10 minutes of the school day, he had some of his students basically uh, in their open time undo his hair. He said he was going to get his hair done that afternoon. He didn't have time to do it in his personal time because I don't know. He gives explanation of why. I think it's reasonable. It's not super important, but it like I can find it if need be. And basically, there's a lot of response that like what he's doing is inappropriate, and wanted to get y'all's thoughts on it because I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I could agree that it's inappropriate. However, it's a catch-22 for me. It's inappropriate because it can be seen as why of really any teacher, male or female, but it's even more uh, prevalent with men teachers. Why would you put yourself in a situation where you would have your students touching you in any way or fashion? But it's also a different thing, as in one of those things where doing doing hair, barbering, or things like that is a form of communication in many neighborhoods, not just black but white neighborhoods too. Like barbering is where a lot of people learn a lot of skills and traits. So I think in that respect, you may be able to forgive it if it's just that friendly on that basis. But I do think overall it's inappropriate to put yourself in a predicament where somebody can take it out of context.
I don't
So
know. I think. Oh yeah. No, you go ahead. I'm curious.
oh
to hear
yeah,
that.
yeah. So I'm watching this now, and I got it on screen for other people, in the audience. They're seeing it as well. Um, but like I'm looking at this, and I don't see how this is like inappropriate. I mean, like only way I would agree it's inappropriate if this was like happening like during like instruction time. You know, like this is from like your description. This is the last 10 minutes of
Yeah, the school
of
day.
school, right? You know, and guess what? Your kids ain't like learning shit, right? Like they're just like waiting, thinking, you know, like they're about to leave and go home. And so this seems like a fun thing. When you look around at like the faces of the young women who are doing this hair, and they're laughing, having a good time. Like this is like bringing them all closer. This is something that they do. Like all these girls, like most of them got braids on themselves, right? This is something that they do for themselves and for like family members, and this is like a fun thing for them, you know, right? Like, oh, we get to, this is something like we never get to do like with our teachers. Like we were like interacting with them in a different way, and there's like literally nothing could be construed as sexual here, right? They're just like touching the top of his head, and unless you think that's like somehow inherently a sexual thing, right? This is just like, I don't know, like if like this, I'm thinking like what would this be like for boys? And I don't know a grooming thing that we would do for boys in this way, right? But like I can imagine like a teacher like arm wrestling students, you know, like the boys like, hey, let's have an arm wrestling competition, and like that could be fun for them, you know, or something, right? Like just because they
It's
have
a
physical contact doesn't mean that it's necessarily inappropriate.
it's a maybe like a good example. When teachers roast students, like when they have those like and it's like a fun like lighthearted roast thing, and the teacher kind of if you look at that in the worst context, that's a teacher like bullying a child, right? But if you look at that in context of, you know, it's a cultural thing. It's something that the teacher wants to get on the level of the children with, and wants to create a bond. Probably all right.
Yeah, I think that like there's two parts to it. Like one, if I tried to frame this in a way like what's something that I don't think it's ever inherently inappropriate. I'm like, what's a situation, what's the best scenario I could create for at least seeing their perspective? And I would say maybe if it's one girl and maybe if it's happening often with the same girl, like if it seems like, oh, okay, he has a special relationship with one girl student, and
Yeah.
maybe if it's like the class is out, maybe it's like during his like private period he's doing it, I can see like parents feeling like, oh, that's probably not like super appropriate. But the fact of like it seems to be from the sound they're in the class with like other students, all like there's probably, you know, a full classroom of students, and he's got 5 different girls doing it. Doesn't seem like it's like special attention. It's like, hey, who in here actually can do this? And they just like raise their hands. It was like, oh, okay, cool, help me out.
Well,
And
well, I mean,
Mhm.
I was gonna say a lot of y'all. I don't know if I'm assuming this, but a lot of y'all are contextualizing the word inappropriate as like sexual.
Well, that's
Or,
what
like,
if you go
or
into the
physical.
quotes, a lot of them are like saying that, like they're that was going to be my second part is like they're like I think there's a the reason I said that I wanted to say this before Dream because it kind of goes back to this like bear scenario that he's been on for the last few weeks, but I think there is a legitimate societal issue with seeing men as inherently like sexual
Dangerous.
predators. And the idea of like, oh, okay, like when like at least when I was reading through the quotes of like there's so many little girls getting touched on, you just can't, you know, take that chance. And I'm like, if you think that like something about braiding hair like some necessarily leads to sexual assault because it's involving a man, like I think that there probably is a societal problem to speak to. And the braiding hair isn't going to be the differentiator. If he was a child abuser, the braiding hair wasn't like isn't gonna like draw that line. That's not the distinction here.
Yeah.
And just looking at him, like I mean, he's literally just chilling. Like there's no reason to even pull that assumption out of. So
and he filmed it, and he like
Yeah.
went out of his way to film it. right? Like
Yeah.
to like doubly protect, probably to protect himself. That might have been in the back of his mind, right? When
Mhm.
he like pulled the, I don't know what he filmed it on, but like to say it was a cell phone camera.
Yeah.
Like hey, like either one. That could have he fell from the probably for one of two reasons. Either one, he thought like maybe someone's gonna make a big deal out of this, or two, he thought it was so not a big deal. I'm gonna film this because it's a fun thing that we're doing. You know, like it's one of those options.
Mhm.
And like I love what you said about like how do we intake you go so again the man versus bear controversy. I'm not sure, have you all known it, you know, Don Swerve
Yeah.
Pace, you guys know what we're talking about?
I haven't
Yeah.
the slightest idea.
Okay, so to catch you up, and anyone else in the audience who might not be aware of it, because and I apologize for introducing it to you because it's really dumb and there's no reason for us to be arguing about this
Is this
bullshit.
about an actual bear?
No, no,
It's
no.
not.
So it's a hypothetical that's like posed to women, right? Like if would you rather be in the woods with a man or a bear? And a lot of women are saying a bear,
Oh, I've seen
right?
that on some of the Facebook
Okay.
groups that I'm in.
Yeah, okay. So all right, yeah. So in any case, the point is that like that's a hyperbolic statement, and women are saying like that relates to like how they feel about men, their daily interactions with them, right? Like with random men. But like that's random men. Even in the posing of that question, it's a random man. It's not, hey, like, would you rather be in the woods with your father? And hopefully the answer is yes, but for some women the answer is still no there.
Mhm.
Unfortunate. But or like, yeah, I don't know, your boyfriend or whatever, right? Like it's different when we're talking about a specific man. This is a specific person. This teacher, right? And it can't be the assumption that like, well, teachers in general can't be trusted. If that's the case, then why did you send your kids to that school? Because just like Bam said, like if they're going to molest them, they don't need to get them to braid their fucking hair to make that happen, and certainly not to film it while it's happening, right? Like that's like it, I think people are so focused on like
I
the
don't think that's the
stranger.
point, though.
I'm almost done.
Yeah.
And I know, no, toss it to you. I don't. I think people are really focused on the idea of stranger danger. But like no, like this is like we can make some like intelligent um assumptions, or not assumptions, predictions as to like what is and actually isn't dangerous interactions, and them like having a friendly thing where, oh, you just unbraided his hair, like this is the avenue he's going to use to molest your kid. Like what? It's crazy. But anyway, go ahead, Pace.
Yeah, I don't think that's the point. I mean, as harmless as braiding hair looks, the facts are people don't send their kids to school to bond with the teacher, or they send their students to school because they want them to learn skills that will be able to prepare them for the real world. And if this, let's say this is something that's inherently sexual, which I agree with Swerve that this isn't something that it's not inappropriate because it's sexual in nature. It's inappropriate because of just the nature of the interaction between teacher and student. Let's assume that it was sexual in nature. Why give ammunition to parents who have already begun to lose some general decorum in respects to teachers at schools nowadays anyway? Why give ammunition to that when at the last 10 minutes of school time, uh, back when I was in school, the last 10 minutes of school time in my class, that was the time where we were supposed to be quiet and studying. And if you had good behavior, you could take that last 10 minutes of time, at least where I was going to school at, you take that last 10 minutes of time and you can go to the library and you can go check out books, or if you're in an area that was supervised, you could go hang outside in the courtyard with your friends and talk amongst your peers. That wasn't time that was utilized dealing with the teacher. And now does this happen? Can it just be friendly general bonding? Yeah, I agree. It can just be friendly general bonding, and I'm pretty sure when I was in elementary school, you saw that type of stuff happen in the younger grades. But once you got over, I'd say, fifth grade or so, it was mm, not only was it deemed inappropriate for the teachers to do it, it was deemed inappropriate by your fellow students to have that type of relationship with your teacher at that time too. So I just think that uh, the greater picture of it is don't put yourself or don't put students or parents in a situation where a good teacher, like this guy looks like he may be scrutinized more than what is necessary because of something that can be seen as harmless, but in the eyes of the parents, this isn't what they sent their kids to school for.
And I
Mm.
want to add another thing too. Just being someone who worked in schools for the past 6 years, man, like I work in Massachusetts. You know, the standards of the state and the standards of the city are not the same across the board. I understand that, but at the schools that I worked at across the board, um, teachers, faculty, staff of the school are not allowed to have personal videos of students or any type of interaction like that on their personal device. Everything has to be gone, and if it's posted on the internet, it has to be through the school's network on the school's profile. That's number one. That's an infringement. Like Pace said, it's just like there's a boundary, there's an expectation of boundaries when you're working as a teacher. uh you're not there to be their friend, you're there to be their educator. Do I think that there is definitely room for bonding between students and teachers, and do we need to make that relationship more human and organic? Yes, but having students braid your hair is definitely like Pace said, it's not what they're going to school for. uh, and it's not a good utilization of their time or practice or anything like that. You're just the fact that he has a video of a bunch of teenagers doing his hair while he does his work, to me is a little weird. And to post that is a little weird. Not even weird on the idea that he's abusing these kids or sexualizing these kids. It's just weird to use that as content. Like you're at your job, you're at your job. You're supposed to be teaching these kids, and yeah, it's cool to see the other side of how you can be cool with students and shit. But like, what's the point of that content? What was the original point of that content in the first place?
Well, it seems his content from a few other videos of him started flying around the TL. It seems like his content is almost exactly um what you're saying, is trying to show that he believes in the concept of a decent teacher. A decent teacher's role in their students' life is more personal. Like he has videos of him staying after school with some of the kids that are like do soccer, and he's like going through like, I guess playing with them, playing soccer with them, and a couple other videos of him like having more personal interaction with students. Um, I think, as far as, I don't buy the whole like waste of time thing, because again, like, just based on the scenario, it's the last 10 minutes of the day. Apparently, they were using that day and that day in class was meant for we're at the end of the semester. They're doing like presentation type projects, and
Mm.
basically people have assigned days that you do presentations on. They made it through all the end of their assignments. Like everyone who was assigned to go that day went. They had few extra minutes. He
Thanks,
thought that everybody did well, so he's like, "Oh yeah, I have to go. I have a hair appointment after this, anyways." Somebody trying, y'all can. Everybody who wants to chill. But if somebody wants to help me take my hair down, they can. And I guess the girls just volunteer, like, "Ooh, let me do it." Um, I think that I think there some boundaries are probably natural just for the cohesiveness of the system, the school system. But I do believe there's like teachers spend more time with a lot of children than their parents. And I think that to create a learning environment, I think there is value in the students like liking you as a human being, more so than just your ability to know the correct math problem
Yeah,
or
but
spit
you
out the
like, I'm
information.
sure that we all in this room have liked a teacher that didn't do anything personal with us after school or in our extracurricular programs. Like there are people who are cool. Like for instance, I'm gonna just bounce off myself, whether you call it bragging or boasting, whatever. I have respect amongst a lot of the students that I deal with. I work in high school level, generally speaking, and being a black man, a man in the school, and just someone who's at a younger age bracket, I can level with the students on a different level. And a lot of kids respect me for that. But I'm not doing anything extra. I'm not having them braid my hair. I got braids. I'm not having them braid my hair. We're not and there are days, there are times, like you said, when there's projects and there's like free periods and shit like that. Like kids have brought gaming systems into school, gaming things, and I've let them play. They asked me to hop on Super Smash Brothers. We'll run a round of Super Smash Brothers. It's a free period. They're not doing anything, shit like that. But like I don't know. I feel like that shit
I mean,
is for the school.
I mean, again to the level of inappropriateness. I mean, I don't know if anybody has brought up the point in any of the responses to the video from, and I haven't, obviously I haven't seen the video, so haven't read any of the responses to it, but I don't know if anyone's looked at it. But a teacher going to the process of taking their hair down in school because because they have an appointment in the first place, that's not something that should be done in the classroom in general. That should be done in your off time. I mean, I understand it's like I don't have a lot of time, and it's something that he could use to call for a bonding moment. But that to me, I mean, maybe I'm just old fashioned, but that to me is inappropriate in of itself. There's no reason for a teacher to dress down at any point in the day in front of the students, even if it's just hair. If you're going to do that, do it on your off time.
Well, I looked up the explanation because I thought this would come up. Like I said, so the specific explanation was, actually, it's kind of crazy because he does so well as a teacher. He was actually having like a video. I guess they were having like his classroom was having like a videoing happening. Like they were shooting some production out of his classroom, and he was like didn't take his hair down the night before because he was like, oh, okay, if you're going to be shooting a recording in my classroom, he does believe he should look presentable on the video.
Yeah, but that's irrespective of him then deciding to use that time period out during work hours to have his hair done. That's irrespective of that. That's not professional on the workplace to have your hair done while you're working in the first place.
I mean, but it's just kind of either he could have had his hair
He could have waited
the entire
until
day.
he could have done it the entire day, or he could have waited until his time working was up to do it. I mean, if I was working, like I work at Dad's Camper Outlet now, and I go there off Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday every single day, and while I'm there, I'm there. Now I may not have a whole lot to do during the week because our time there is spent trying to set appointments for Saturday so we can make sales calls on Saturday and make sales meetings. But the entire time that I'm there, the way that I show up is the way that I leave. Now, if I want to go get my hair cut or something like that, I'll wait until I'm done. Like we're pretty lax on dress code. Come up with a buttoned up shirt and whatever type of pants you want to wear, and just make sure that your facial hair is neat. But if I come in to work and I'm dressed like this, generally speaking, I'm going to be dressed like this unless I took time off of work to go home and I wasn't on the clock doing that. I'm not going to change my dress in my office while I've got customers there, despite the fact that I may have built up rapport with those customers, and I think that making them comfortable around me might make me more successful with the sale. I'm not going to do that. It's just a lack of professionalism that I think he didn't need to take in this case.
I don't know. I think we can unpack some levels issues of like what professionalism has to look like. Because I'll say for myself personally and my boss, like I've had time. Typically, I go to the gym in the morning. I usually go at 5:30. That's my time. But some days, if I like, oh crap, I slipped in weirdly, whatever, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to the gym in the afternoon. Whenever I like, if it's 10 minutes before I get off at the end of the day on a slow day, and I have my like gym bag with me, I'll absolutely go throw on my gym clothes before I leave, so I can already have it on in the car. Stop straight by the gym, go straight in and do my day. And I've seen my boss do the same if he's going about the like, he'll switch to shorts if he's gonna go golfing or if he's going hunting, like out straight in the office. He'll bring his clothes and like he walks by, you see like a customer could be there. How's it going? Oh, I'm just heading out. Like I don't know. I don't think that the things that society tries to hold as professionalism. And first of all, this isn't even customer facing. This is, I mean, like students, I wouldn't consider them customers. I just think they're people.
Yeah, but their parents are the customer in this case.
I guess kind of, but I'm saying even in the idea of like what customers, the things that customers actually care about and value as professionalism, like I feel like a lot of these things are like made up. And if we actually think into like, is it actually strange that he took his hair down during the last 5 minutes of work? Like, did that make him worse at his job? Is there people that are going to judge him differently for that? I don't necessarily buy into that.
Yeah, I wanna pushing like okay, so I sort of I acknowledge what you were saying about like the rules in your school, right? Or your district. My argument would be that these things go too far in the first place. That like that the and I think the rules are in response to a hostile environment for teachers that's been happening for decades. Nothing new is like there's nothing is new about this, right? That teachers been under attack. Um, so like I get why those rules are definitely in place, right? Um, but it's not. But I don't think those. I think really like the heart of those rules are not in there to protect kids, but just to protect teachers, right? It's not that these things any of these regulations will stop a predator from predating on a child, right? Obviously they won't. Of course not, right? It's to cover your ass. That's all it is. And so if we look at it that way, then I think we should like reorient our perspective and say that we should push back against these things. We want uh, uh teachers to be able to interact in like non-standard ways, right? That get the kids more invested. Because those were always the teachers I liked the most. The teachers who would like, you know what, let's put the curriculum aside for a second. Let me talk to you about something that's really going to interest you. And then that teacher, when they did get back to the curriculum, I'd be paying more attention to it, right? When you feel more relaxed around this person, when you feel that they're invested in you, that like they'll treat you like an adult rather than like want to keep you at arm's length. I mean, that's just like being human. It's just being human in the first place. And this moment, like this idea that the last 10 minutes, even in the example that Pace gave, right, the last 10 minutes of his school, is quiet time or like go to the library, right? Yeah, meaning kids aren't learning, kids aren't doing much of anything, in that time. So instead, like in this moment, it's not like this is like a regular thing. Like, hey, all like help me groom myself. Like this is my grooming time. It's like, hey man, I'm gonna go do this
Yeah,
thing.
like Mondays we do a clean shave. Tuesdays we do the
Yeah,
braids.
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly, right.
Wave caps, wave cap Wednesdays. Like, nah.
These are these moments in time, right? Like I'm gonna compare it to parenting, and I'm not a parent here, but like the things that kids talk about, like the moments they get closer to their parents is not when their parents like necessarily do those big gestures, right? Maybe buy them the big gifts or whatever. It's like those tiny moments that they connect, right? Or where like maybe they learn something about each other, or just like this like random act of kindness that seems like small maybe to the parents' eyes, but like or just like a really big thing. Like, oh man, you really helped me out. This like really shows you care about me, and that's how people get close to one another, right?
You have to be you have to be okay with at least some level of affection being shown. Like, my girl was telling me about my daughter. She was like, "Yo, let me tell you this story. It just like changed my whole day." It's like, all my daughter went up to my girl. It's like, "I love you, mommy," and then ran back out into the playground. Like, it's I think that the teacher, if this is like a continuous thing, I think like that's probably not good. But if this is like a one-off, and I was thinking to myself, if there was a club, if this was a club, right, that was sanctioned by the school, parents signed off on it, all that, would I be okay with it? And the answer is yes, I would be okay with it because it is a skill, and in the Black community, you can make money doing hair, so it's not like it's totally useless. and not you like so like a utilitarian argument against it. We could make arguments. We could make arguments for it. And I think they're there. So if it was me, if it was my daughter, the thing that I agree with Pace and Swerve on is I don't like the fact that he just posted on social media. I don't want my daughter being posted on social media without my consent as her guardian. So that's where I'll meet. That's where I'm like, okay, privacy, protection for the child. I'm good with that. But as far as the merits of a teacher bonding with their students in this way, I mean, it's not. I don't think it's bad.
I think it's a good point that you made there. But I actually do want to ask, because you brought up well, you got two good points. One about the posting your kid on social media.
Mhm.
I think that one's fair. That maybe like block out the kids' faces or something like that. If you're gonna do something like this. But yeah, that might be fair. But on the second note, the idea of making it into a club, right? One, the skills thing. Yes, it is a skill. To do it correctly and to and it's a social skill. It's a one that can bring in actual money. But beyond that, this idea of making it into a club, right? So let's change this for a second. What if this teacher brought in his like personal computer, right? His PC, and he was having trouble with it. Right now, he's going to go to a professional after school, but he's going to go there straight after school and without going home. So he brings in his PC, right? It was sitting on the side. Last 10 minutes of class, he's like, "Look, I've been having trouble with this. I've been having trouble with this. Like, can anyone like assist me?" Right? And like a few of the kids who know anything about it got up and helped. Right, and you saw them; they're in close proximity to each other, like examining the computer, discussing it, maybe tinkering it with, and like their hands might touch while they're like in the chassis, right? Like, would that be okay?
Yeah, that's a good.
To me, it depends on the context. And when I was in school, my ninth and 10th grade year, I was in vocational education, so I took business computer technology. Part of the curriculum was learning how to build a computer from the ground up through the chassis system. So if my teacher brought a computer to the class that was intended upon us to work on, that would follow within the curriculum of our stuff. If the teacher was my English teacher, it would be weird. Yeah, I don't think it would be appropriate for the English teacher to do that. If it was the computer teacher, it would be different. It depends on the teacher's the curriculum to me.
But I mean, does it have to be part of a curriculum to have like a human interaction?
It's not. It's the I feel like the context. I feel like it's the context is super important here. Like, how's all the details? Because I was just thinking to myself, I have to be honest. If I found out that a male teacher was just brushing my daughter's hair after school, I'd be like, what the fuck? I would be like, what the fuck? Where's the why? I don't see that as the same as this situation, but those are two specific situations where I'm not really like, where my principle is that, my principle is that this women girls braiding men's hair or boys' hair, that's a thing in the black community. Women braiding men's hair as a thing of just hair care. I think that's much more acceptable, but only because of the context. If it's just a male teacher brushing my daughter's hair, I'm going to think that's weird, and I'm going to be wondering. I'm going to need a good explanation as to why that happened.
I think it's okay to have them prefer the context, but I don't think it would be inherently inappropriate. What if your daughter got picked on for her hair that day? Maybe he was like having a moment of like support. Or what if she had something happen? Maybe it was picture day. Something came out. She was in a moment of panic, and he was like, "Don't worry, I got you." Like, hold up, we're gonna. I have a daughter. Maybe he has a daughter at some age. Like, oh yeah, I had to learn how to do her hair like this. Like, I don't know, my butt fell down.
Things. I think in those cases,
he's giving me the context. He's giving me the context, and that's something that I would be okay with, Bam. But again, it's very context dependent, for sure.
No,
now to me, in the circumstance that Don brought up about it being a club, to me, it would still be inappropriate for the teacher. If it was a club and it was students doing other students' hair as
That's
part
what
of
I
after
meant.
school activities, I wouldn't
That's
have
what I
any
meant.
problem with that. The teacher doing that is different. Now, the teacher can have a model on, like, I won't say a model like a student, but a model is in some type of wig or something there to show them how things are done. But the teacher shouldn't be using themselves as a model for the teacher for the students to get practice.
Right.
Why
Like
not? I don't.
I've had kids because it's just you use the appropriate resources, man. Like
It's
I don't. I mean, there is a like I think you guys both brought it up. There is like this societal standard where that can be looked at and questioned and reevaluated, right? Like, do we act
Mhm.
like does this actually make somebody worse at their job or better at their job? Does this effectively does this affect the actual job being done? And I don't think that dude getting his hair braided makes him any worse of a teacher. I don't think it changes the dynamic of the classroom, but I do think it's just not the right thing to do because, like you said, it
Wrong,
doesn't. It,
might be the right thing. It's just the wrong place and time. You
mm-hmm,
know, in reference to Bam, if what Bam says is true about this guy, I agree with Swerve that I don't think the dynamic is going to change too much with the teacher's feelings, nor the feelings of the parents towards the particular teacher involved here. I think it is as harmless as it is. I just don't think that it should have been done at that place and time.
yeah. So on, I want Swerve and I don't think you fully answered my question, Pace. But we'll start with Swerve. Swerve. The computer, personal computer, comes in, wants to troubleshoot it with the kids. What do you think of that?
I don't think you do that in the last 10 minutes of class.
Really,
Yeah, no,
really.
absolutely, no.
What do
I
y'all
mean,
do at school? Do y'all have a full day? Like these 10 minutes are used for learning
Yeah.
time. Like,
no,
to
no,
me,
no.
Yes,
If
learn.
you, no,
He's
if you
gonna be a
wanna,
bum. The last 10 minutes weren't used
no.
properly, right?
So let's say because I teach math, right? That's my focus. That's what I'm always in is a math class, right? And let's say there was a few assignments in the curriculum for the day, right? We have a worksheet or a test to get done, then you have one worksheet to complete after that. After you're done, there's nothing to do. And let's say you got smart kids who complete it in 30 minutes. The class is an hour and a half long. They ain't got shit to do, right? Then you figure something out that's school appropriate. You either do homework for another class, you sit there and shut up and put your head down. You could take a nap. You can chat quietly amongst the other students if everyone's done with their quizzes. But I'm not gonna sit there and be like, oh, let me pull up my PC and see if I can get some free child labor. Like, no, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, I'm
labor.
not.
What?
No, I'm
Like,
being hyperbolic. I'm being exaggerative, right? But no, like, I'm not gonna. If it's 2:30, and teachers usually work past the bell. Like, if it's 2:30, the kids leave. I'm there till 3:45, anyways. And there are plenty of kids who stay after because they ain't want to go right home. If you want to talk about that, then at 2:30 after the school day's over, that's fine and dandy. But
okay,
during
okay.
that's
like
probably
they said,
weirder to
like
me.
Yeah, that'd
that.
be weird to me. Then,
Well, I mean, well, the
'Cause you're like
context was is
staying
I'm
after
going to the computer.
class.
I'm going to. Well, I gotta stay. I gotta stay
No,
after.
I'm not talking about a teacher. I'm talking about a teacher asking students to like, come on, like be in this classroom with me by myself. Let's go over this computer stuff. Now, again, I still don't think it's necessarily
yeah,
inappropriate. But if someone feels inappropriate about one, I feel like they would feel worse about the other.
absolutely, yeah,
You think so?
yeah.
Asking a
I,
student,
th- I sort of I see Swerve's point because I was in that situation when I was in school, where these programs like the vocational education building, we we were working towards college credits while we were in high school. So finishing that program, it was a 3-year program, gives us 3 college credits right off the bat. We had a lot of stuff that we did after school hours. So we would be in the computer lab after school building computers. So
sure, but you're still talking about like curriculum based things. I'm talking.
yeah, but
You're talking
no,
about
but
non-curriculum, like stay after school
I'm
to
saying
help me
this is
with this
after
non-school thing.
I'm saying this is after school. This is after school. We're still, then that's what we're doing as part of our club activity, part of our work. Now, if so, let's say in this hypothetical, Swerve came up. He was one of the teachers, and he knows uh, that the business computer technology kids are staying after school at 4 o'clock to build computers, and he brings it up into the classroom, hands it over to our instructor, and it's like, hey, can you guys examine this? And I think that would be fine because we would still be underneath the same premise of the curriculum. We're learning how to use our skills, and he may have some profit out of it, and it would
Right,
be a
but we're
learning
not talking
experience
about
for us.
curriculum. We're talking about like non-curriculum things.
Not
Like,
well, if it doesn't involve curriculum, uh, I don't I
That's
don't
weird.
I don't
Think
see where it go. I don't see where you go with it if it doesn't involve curriculum. Curriculum is what everything at school should be focused around, outside of sports anyway.
I don't know. It just feels like just feels very like inhuman. Like it just doesn't feel like
I
it's
mean,
dealing with the concept
I
of like,
mean,
oh, these are
You
people
guys
look,
that
would
can
say,
interact.
would you
the schools
you
got
guys
rid of
say,
home ec. I mean, human stuff is like school now. School now is to train you to be an automaton. Without
But it sounds like you're asking for
home
that.
ec and life skills. Oh, I mean, if you want more home ec type things, then they should reintroduce that. But while that's not part of the curriculum of the school, it has no place there.
But I'm saying that like you say every like it like you're the one that's making the automaton. You're saying that like no, everything should be if it doesn't in the school book, you shouldn't say it, you shouldn't talk about it, there should be no interactions. If you want to talk about it, add it to the rule book. Like that feels very
Yes.
robotic. But
Well, you
it's
have
weird to
you
make
have
your
a you
complaint
have
then.
a you have a handbook for a reason. And again, to Don's case point earlier about the social media thing, in my school handbook, you're not allowed to be put in this student newspaper or anything if you don't have permission from parents or anything like that. Media
Yep.
of any sort. So, if you want to make things more flexible, then you hold a PTA meeting, and you have that conference, and you come together on what you think the curriculum and extracurricular activities should be at the school, and you update the rules on that.
I don't know.
so
Because
so
Actually,
one
it just
thing,
leads to the
Pace,
to your complaint.
Pace,
Yo,
I
Dom.
wanna respond to what you're saying, Pace, because so you're not making you don't have like a moral qualm with the idea that the teacher's getting his hair braided or
no, it's not
debraided.
about
So let's
it's not
get so
about
we
morality to me.
so we cut that away, right? But the next issue is if you just said something that was interesting about schools that had home ec, right? And you said, well, if they're strictly based on the curriculum, and you're saying that they cut home ec and that's why those things shouldn't be involved, as if to say that cutting home ec was something that was based on a sort of quality of life of school or quality of education of school, when really the reason why home ec got cut from schools is due to, like, society changing, but more importantly is budget constraints. That's why the arts gets cut, that's why home ec gets cut. So with that being said, if we're talking about something like home ec, is it wrong for a teacher to take like maybe like after school, right? They go to the dean, they create a time slot, they schedule a bus, they get it funded. Let's say they go through all of the necessary regulations to set up a proper program that's not directly connected to the curriculum. Would you be okay with that? Would you be okay with the teacher going above and beyond for his students so that they can get an experience that will,
In the
number
situ
one,
in
you
the
know what I mean?
circumstance and situation that you explain, that's it. That's exactly what the scenario that I just gave. If you went through those channels, went to the dean or the principal to set up an extracurricular activity, and parents signed off on it, that's
Yeah,
acceptable.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is even more why I think this is fine, because it looks like it's a one-off, but we don't. I
I
guess we
think a
don't
good
really
question.
know.
A good question to be asked is like all these people commenting on the like just like we're discussing on this video, right? Is like are the kids involved? Because you said that this is his type of content, right? He's trying to show
Oh, that's right.
his
Yeah,
different
something like kind
aspect
of, yeah, yeah.
of are the parents in on it? Are
Mm.
the parents in on it all the time that he posts this kind of content?
It seems like, well, at least related to
It
this,
gotta be, right? Like,
apparently parents are coming out like in defense of him, saying that like, oh,
Okay,
he's a great
that
teacher.
changes things. Yeah,
does
But
it? So that changes things for you, really?
I mean, it does speak to it does
That
speak because understand
I'm not like this
that
is
just
interesting.
like I said that I have a regional rules and mandates and codes, right? Other places experience different cultures and different callings, right? If the parents are sticking up for him, and this is a like like we're even trying to make the stance. This is like a black cultural, community cultural thing that we're touching on, right? Then it might just be appropriate in the context, and that is evidence of that being appropriate in the context. So yeah, if the parents are like, nah, he's a good teacher, he's cool, I trust him with my students, instead of the parents being like, like you said, if you just saw your daughter getting her hair brushed or brushing someone's hair, you'd be like, what the fuck? And the parents aren't like, what the fuck?
Hmm.
That does
They
say
don't
something.
make those. They don't make those movies like what's that movie about that the white lady that goes to the hood and starts teaching them English?
Freedom Writers,
Bro,
fantastic movie.
they don't make movies like that for nothing. That shit works. It works when you get on kids' level, like Swerve was saying, you get on their level and you just try to give them a little bit of breathing room. You know what I mean? A little bit of
Mhm.
breathing room to feel like um it's really to build trust, honestly. It's really to build trust because teachers a lot of problems is that they deal with students that have like straight up abandonment issues, straight up trust abandonment trauma, and they don't know how to deal. They're not equipped to deal with children like that. And I think that doing things like this, um we should be vigilant, but we should also be open-minded. Like
I
we
want
should go at it
I,
with
I want to, because I'm really curious. Like, what's the limits of
That's good.
like the issues here that Swerve and Pace are having? Because okay, so it's not an activity that they're doing, right? But instead it's the teacher. So anyway, it's the last 10 minutes of class. We like in the last class is technically math class or whatever, right? But I wanted to take this time out and talk about like a personal anecdote, right? These are things that I dealt with growing up, or something that's happening to me now, and something I want to relate to you because I think it might be useful to you kids, right? So whatever it is, it absolutely does not have anything to do with math. 0% with math, right? But the teacher feels like this could be a useful lesson, like, and it's like not within the curriculum, whatever it is, the story, not within the curriculum at all. Would that be okay?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. It's because it just has to happen. I think that effectively as a teacher, you can't. And I do think that this is different from getting your hair braided, just to preface, but I think that as a teacher, you can't just be like you said, like an automaton. Like it can't be 100% everything that comes out of my mouth is curriculum math, curriculum math. There has to be You have to be humane in the approach, or you'll lose the kids. And there are teachers who are like that don't have anecdotals or anything like that, and they just spew numbers or spew
Yeah,
literature,
yeah.
whatever. And some I feel like the kids who are like that, akin to that, grasp, but anyone else is like gonna fall off. They're gonna get bored. They're not gonna be interested. So but that I do think that's different from getting your hair braided.
I know. I think it is different, but like I'm trying to like find your limits
I
here. So
So does
I
it have
mean,
anything to do with the touch? Like, so is the touch appropriate? Is that the boundary? They-
I think it's the touch. I think it's the labor of it. I think it's the actual fact that like think about it, like an antidote has a purpose. I don't know if this dude isn't like I'm having these girls undo my hair so they can learn how to undo hair better, then you're just using them girls to undo your hair. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no lesson to that.
yeah, I don't
There's
think
no
he would say he's teaching a
there's
lesson.
no
yeah.
there's no utility. There was no utility in it. There was no utility in the action other than just personal gain.
Okay, hold on. Oh,
Is
then
that
yeah. Okay, hold
Rapport
on. So
building. You can say
so I want to
rapport
hear
building.
what
That
Pace has to
that
say.
There's
that
I
other
want to
ways
hear
to
what
do
Pace
that.
has to say, but I have another scenario too, right? Because I want to push on this. I'm trying to find the limits here. So you say that's okay. Pace, a guy is telling anecdotes after like or at 10 minutes left. That had nothing to do with curriculum.
but to me, it really depends on the nature of the anecdote. If it's something that is applicable to life and it uses the skills that you've learned at the school, I think yeah. I mean, I know one of the things that I enjoyed a lot was It was not part of the curriculum, but my teachers went well beyond and above teaching us on how to balance a checkbook and how to budget properly. It wasn't part of the curriculum, but it was something that was absolutely
No,
necessary.
it's none of that. It's none of that.
We're talking about the most recent Marvel movie.
Yeah, you're talking about and your experience in the theater, right? And it's like it gave you a life lesson. Because you had an
You're talking about casual conversation and anecdotes that come from it. I think that's fine.
Okay, that's fine. All right. What if hmm.
I can provide an example.
Okay.
What about a situation like let's say there's a teacher, right, who is also a football coach, and they're like, and then one of the biggest kids in school is like, man, I could go toe to toe with you. You know how young bucks do. Would that be inappropriate for a for the the football coach? To just
Yes.
kind of that would be inappropriate.
Yes, it would be. It's not. It look unless it's in the middle of like their training and it's part of what they do for football training. I was never part of the football team, so I don't know what they do for full training. Unless it's part of the training, there is never a circumstance where a teacher should ever have to do any type of physical interaction with a child that could cause one or the other to get injured at all, unless
I mean,
they're
yeah,
trying
not
to break up
actually
a
putting
fight.
hands on the kids.
No, I'm not. Yeah, exactly. Go ahead,
I
man.
think he's talking about like verbally, like because I mean, I had
No. I meant like get in a stance, like maybe try to. I'm not saying that the teacher's going all out on the dude trying to.
You saying like play fighting?
Kinda, yeah, in the sense that
I don't know
like
about that.
No, it's
No,
not. It's
I
not
don't know.
okay.
That seems
No,
like that seems a
wait,
little.
no.
I don't think it's crazy. I think it's probably a little overstep. Something that actually I'll stand by.
I mean,
If
I think it
someone
would be
else heard it,
fun.
may have been appropriate, but I respect my teacher for my favorite teacher I ever had. He was also a coach, and I remember one time in class, there's one kid who had been acting out the entire class. He was just doing crazy stuff the entire class, and the teacher told him, he's like, you know what, hey, just go down to the office, step out, like I can't have you interrupt my class. And basically, he said the student basically said something to essentially to, bitch, you won't say it to my face. He's all right, like I'll hit you in the jaw or something like that. And then my teacher was like, hold on. He said, wait a minute. He said, you know what? He said, you gonna hit me in the jaw? And he leaned forward, turned his face. He said, you better make the first one count, baby. That's all I'm gonna tell you. Which again, if that came out publicly, probably would have been like, oh, don't threaten to kill the
Probably.
student. But
yeah.
still my favorite teacher, and that's a funny moment. Like he didn't actually put his hands on him.
I
He's
mean,
like,
sure.
okay, you turned the
I mean, sure. It can be fun for the students and the teachers involved, but it's not something that should be done. I had a teacher to say away. His name was Mr. Middleton. He was a 6'8" black guy. Who was my history teacher for in 10th grade, and he had a fear of bananas, and so the kids would always try to come and put bananas on his desk. He never would tell us why, and they'd come up in there. They try to fight him with bananas, and he grab them sometimes, and like they'd be trying to wrestle him. He grab him and toss him onto the table, throw him across around the desk. They were having fun. It was a good time. But if Dr. Holloway would have walked inside that classroom, Middleton would have got fired right there. And and the students would have hated it because he was one of the best guys we had on that campus. But it was not appropriate.
I also had a second thing. I mean, unless y'all had somewhere else.
So are those two things not maybe connected in some way? That he was the best and that he body slammed his student.
Oh well, they're not connected at all. I mean, he was really good because he was a good teacher as far as what Swerve was saying. He knew how to teach without being an automaton, just reading things off a prompter and just having you take notes. He was a good teacher in the ways that he exercised the three main teaching points and adapted to the students' stuff. And he had times for fun and games inside the classroom, but outside of that, the extra stuff like tossing your kids across the desk and doing a choke slam on somebody, it's not appropriate.
So I had a teacher who one, I was in elementary school, and a teacher, he was talking about an explorer, who climbed like was climbing the Grand Canyon, right? And he made a point, like, and there was a specific reason why. But he brought me up to like the front of the classroom, and he picks me up. I'm like 10 or 9, right? He picks me up and he puts me on the ledge of the chalkboard, right? You know where you put the chalk, right? He like stands me up on there, and I'm like holding on to like the edge of the chalkboard at the top, right, which is like this much of clearance, right? And I'm just like holding it, and then he makes his lesson about like how this explorer like climbed like through the Grand Canyon, and I'm like. Like teacher, like, I'm gonna fall, all right? He's like, oh, well, let us know when that's gonna happen so we can all watch. And it was funny. And like, but I remember that lesson. I've always remembered that lesson because that was a fun thing that happened, right? And then, but in that moment in time, he like physically put his hands on me and lifted me up, right? Then later on took me down, from this ledge. But it was fine. But that was like a fun dynamic, type of thing. Um, then separately, there was this other teacher who he would read these stories. I wish I knew the name of these stories, right? It was a bunch of like these short stories from like the point of view of a detective. The detective is coming through, and he's like solving some mystery, like minimal amount of information. And basically, he would stop at the end, right? And like he would ask the class like how to solve like the issue here, right? And it was the point of it was to teach what's it called, vertical learning, you know what I'm talking about, like
Critical thinking,
not critical thinking, I mean it's a type of critical thinking, but
deductive reasoning.
yeah, like deductive reasoning, yeah. But and that was like great, like it wasn't part of the curriculum. I can assure you it was not part of the curriculum, but and it didn't use any of the skills that we had learned in school. Like in fact, none of these skills that I had ever learned up to that point would have been useful there, right? But it was an interesting thing. It's something that like has stayed with me, like trying to like look at things from a different perspective. But it's not part of the curriculum. These are like the different action. This is him showing his personality because he was into these stories. And again, I really wish I knew the name of those things because I would read them now because they were really interesting. But like it was him showing his personality, and through that we could like it was he created a fun activity in class that got us invested, that like the basic curriculum that he was supposed to be teaching in that moment, right, would not have gotten would not have had a similar impact. So I'm just putting that out there.
I have a question for you, Swerve, because you and Pace are kind of I guess the opposite to my view on it.
The descendants.
Um, do you have a problem with the fact that schools have gotten to a point where they're not allowing teachers to be as much of disciplinarians as they used to be, like back in the day? Like, do you think that there's some overcorrection in the school system, like the way things have been evolving, where you can't tell kids nothing, they can act however they want, you can't get in the middle of things, you can't discipline them the way that you used to be able to? Do you think there's any sort of do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah, and I do, for sure.
Okay. All right. So, don't you think that this is part of that conversation about what is like what wiggle room does a teacher, and then to like what Prime said, right? Teachers, where do they have the wiggle room to connect with their students? Where are your lines? Where do you draw your lines? Or do you or is it contextual? Is it like, we got to take it one situation at a time?
I would love to say it is very contextual, but no, I do think that there are general things you just should and shouldn't see in the workspace, and I think that just goes to, I think, what Prime said in the very beginning, which is protecting the employer, the teacher, because it's not even about preventing anything. It's about stopping not allowing yourself to be put in situations that ought get you in trouble or put you in a circumstance where you could find it's a slippery slope, right?
Yeah, but if you
But
disagree with but you just said yourself that you think
I don't think that I don't think that
there's some
these two things.
overcorrection, and that's the system that's causing those teachers to be out of line, right? It's that same system that's overcorrecting is the same system that's reprimanding the teachers.
I don't think that these two things are like directly connected. I see what the point you're making,
Yeah.
but like no, like I don't think that because the reason like because schools are not allowing kids to discipline the students, I mean teachers to discipline the students, that's why this dude's getting his hair braided in class.
That's
'Cause
not what
it,
I'm saying either. It's just no, that's not what I'm
Man,
saying.
I understand, and I do agree with Swerve on that issue. I mean, I'm not saying bring back the nuns and the wooden rulers, but there at least the way I was in school, there was a clear outline of what being disciplinarian was meant and expected to be. And when my grandmother signed the student handbook, she signed the rights for the principal and the teachers to administer punishment if it was necessary. And I remember one particular time. I don't remember what I did to get in trouble, but my third grade teacher, who's great friend of the families. We've known her since I've been in third grade, and still talk to her to this day. She called my grandmother up and told her that I had did something. I don't remember what it was, um, and that they were going to have to take me in there. Either I was going to be suspended, or I get three paddles. And my grandmother says, get three paddles and go to the principal's office, and that's the end of that. And then, in some cases, you had some parents that refused that, and the principals would have to call and ask for permission, and that's was all based upon whether or not you signed that you wanted your students to face any type of disciplinary administration outside of being suspended. I think I think there's room for correction in a lot of those cases. I think there is a lot of overcorrection that's there, but to the same effect, is it contextual? I think it really is, because you don't know the context until you're actually wind up being in the situation. And when you actually be like what we're doing with this guy with the braided hair, until you're actually in a situation where you can have a room of people look back and look at it and be like, hey, you could have handled this differently, as opposed to a situation where a kid clearly deserved to be reprimanded. I think
Mhm.
it's a little contextual, a little different.
So I want to toss this to, as you said, you want to, Bam, you want to take us somewhere, someplace different?
Well, I mean, I would say I want to take this to whatever the end it is, because the second thing's like completely unrelated. But I was
Okay,
like,
yeah,
if
I
we're
was
still
just going to say
engaged,
something
it's fine.
quickly to put a period on that, the story that I told about that teacher, reading those stories, right? Like, I was thinking about it, and like, what did that teacher act like? What was the actual subject that he was teaching us? I don't remember. Like, I'm trying to think about it. And I literally don't remember what the subject was. I remember this teacher. I remember his face clearly. He also ran a photography club, and I was a part of that after school. That was pretty cool. But I swear to God, I don't remember like what he actually was supposed to be teaching us. All that is gone. But like what I clearly remember are these stories, and I remember because one time, I think it was only one time too, which is not. Uh, I'm not proud of that, but one time I actually was the one who solved that deductive reasoning thing. Like I figured it out, and I remember the sense of accomplishment of doing that, in front of the classroom. Like these things are like, and it's a tiny little thing, but and
And
it's
didn't that teach you a skill? Because like what you're saying to me reminds me of a thing for me. Like when I was in school, my sixth grade, my teacher at the end of the day, at the end of the school day, she had a series of books that she liked to read. She loved to read Junie B. Jones, and so she would read them to the class at the end of the day, and we would just read those. And then when I got to college, my college teacher, she wanted us to read books all day, every day, 3 times a day in order to get everything. And it's the same thing, very similar with the deductive reasoning and stuff. Well, she wanted us to break down everything. I didn't understand it until I remembered on the stories that I used to hear from 6th grade, and then when I started doing my writings and stuff a little bit more seriously, I didn't recognize that what she was trying to teach me was the importance of etymology when it comes to words and what they mean, because that's what she was telling us. Read it 3 times and get a dictionary and learn what each word and each name means. And I'm like, this is a little too much for a 6-page literature book. And like, I would say that though it was in the end of the class things that may not have had anything to do with the curriculum, if you were in 10th grade, you were probably in general education, not in periods. Maybe New York is different. I know we were just one teacher, and it was just general courses for us. But at the end of the day, I think that was using the skills that you learn during the English or literature block of that.
Go ahead, Ben. Yeah, I just
No.
want to move on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is something I guess I have a screen recording, but the actual thing is down. Video clip is down. There was a group of black women talking on a podcast, which may be the downfall of the black community.
Yeah.
Like dangerous things to say when you give people microphones these days. We just give them to everybody, including myself. But basically, they were saying that consent can sometimes be a vibe killer in
Oh,
a sexual
no.
interaction. And their examples they went on, they were like, if they had a great date, and a guy asking, do I have permission to kiss you, would make them feel strange. And then they were saying that and then when the girl was pushing back, basically asking for the specifics, I'll try to send over the screenshot, but the screen recording of it. But basically, they were saying that like there's things that probably take a higher level of consent, and they were saying that some things don't, and they were saying that like kissing probably shouldn't. He's like, what if he wants to go up your dress? And he's like, well, you probably shouldn't. He said it would still be weird to ask, but they say that there would be like other cues you look for, like did you touch my face and did I not move it? Did she put her hand did she move her hand and put it on her thigh? Those are the things you look for. And there's a lot of people who are really upset. And there's a lot of guys like, what do you want us to do? How could we possibly, women, they're crazy. They don't know what they want. And there's even some women pushing back like, oh no, consent's great. It's always perfect. And I think I'm about to say, just go ahead and throw my opinion out there. I think neither of these things are necessarily true, or false. I think if someone has any level of experience with first dates or second dates, there is a lot of human interaction that is nonverbal. There's a lot of things that are communicated through social cues, through body language. I think all of these things are real. They don't always have to be 100% right, but I think there's general rules of thumb. I think that, well, again, something like a kiss, if you went on 1, 2, 3 is to me long for me, but yeah, within the first 3 dates, there's going to be an expectation, there's a social expectation going towards the end of the night that there's a possibility, there's a potential for a kiss to happen, because the first kiss is really the big one. After that, things become, at least as far as kissing, if the things stay the same, generally becomes a lot easier or more direct. But the first kiss is what I'm playing into. And I think that there's an expectation within the first 3 dates of oh, okay, at some point a kiss has potential, especially at the end of the date. And I believe that women who want to be kissed put themselves in positions to be kissed. So they're like, oh, do you want to walk me to my door? Or, oh, I really had a great time with you. Things happen. You're you go in for a hug. She makes sure to face you dead on, face to face. You come out of the hug, and now she's looking at you, and you have a moment to decide, oh, okay, this is the time that you go for the kiss or you don't. I don't think there's something that you always have to talk through and ask someone specifically. Like, is it okay? Is it all right? Is now the time that I can kiss you? Like, and although I don't think it has to be a vibe killer, like I think if someone really likes you, asking that isn't going to be the thing that makes them not like you. I think that people were either, to me, like either incels or like want to be sexual abusers who believe that like what the women were saying was completely ridiculous.
So
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
have so much to say here, but like I want to wait till everyone else jumps in
Mhm.
first.
Yeah, that's bomba.
Yeah. What y'all think?
Yeah. I
Can I was I knew this girl, right? Actually, no, I'll talk about my girl, how I met her. We met at a party, and at first we were talking and exchanging playful banter, as you would call it.
Mhm.
And then we moved to a more private area. She's willing to go to a more private area, which is a sign, right? That she's at least comfortable to be around me. And then as we are talking, the other person will communicate how comfortable they are with you based on their body language and the way they're speaking to you. But a good example is if she's moving closer to you, as it's about things like that. Like distance is a big thing with women. How far away are you from me? Can I get away from you if I need to? If I'm feeling uncomfortable, do I feel like you're a danger to me? I think them moving closer to you is a sign. I think that like to the incel point, I think that really what and there's incels and they call them femcells. They come in many different varieties, but a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to have these type of interactions for whatever reason, but they really they might be just like a little traumatized in a sense. Like for too much of their life has been saturated with the lack of human connection. And so they don't actually know how to read humans. And that's a frustrating thing. And with that frustration comes anger and then, your outlet, the internet.
Hmm.
um
Swerve, Ace?
I mean I I agree,
All right, I dropped it.
and I agree with certain parts of what Bam says. I don't think that uh, that consent necessarily has to be verbal. I think there's several phases in somebody's life when in relationships, whether it's platonic or romantic, where you know when to make an action because there's a nonverbal communication, whether it be a look or a nod or in the case that Don was talking about, where they invite you to go to some secluded area, or in Bam's case, where they bring you in for a hug and they're looking at you and they're staring at you, they're waiting to see what's going to happen next. W- What what I do disagree with is the idea of consent being a what was the word you used?
Vibe killer.
Yeah, a vibe killer. I think to me, if I were in the situation, I think somebody's inability to accept the answer that I've given, whether it's yes or no, and consensual, is the vibe killer, and I think that would probably end all communications that I would have with that person.
Swerve?
Yeah, I mean,
Like Swerve
I
had the
think
most
that
experience here. I feel like you've dated a lot of them. Yeah. I feel like you'd be the lady killer of the group. Put that
nah,
out there.
man. I am a wholesome man, a simple man with simple needs.
Okay. All right.
I, uh, uh, just in case my lady's watching. But yeah, no, I think that is consent a vibe killer? Absolutely not. Because there are more than one ways to get consent. I do think that that is something that it is a trial and error through life. Like you experience what is and is not appropriate uh based off of certain interactions. The less interactions you have, the less gauge you have, the less ability you have to read the room, um and to make things more or less awkward or fluent or whatever. But No, man. I think that that's a weird take. That because you don't have to ask. You don't have to flat out ask a direct question to actually get the point across. So
I have so many things to say. I have so many things to say, and
What you got?
I'm like bursting to express myself here. So this came up like years ago, like on this channel. Um, like we had various conversations about this. It was like a big topic for a while. And we had like big fights about this. I think Doobie was there too, and Doobie had some interesting thoughts on this as well. But like I specifically remember those fights because those were crazy. Um, okay, so I think absolutely, like as much as possible, you want verbal communication. As especially when you're just getting to know a person, it's different. My father being married to my mother for like a few decades, right? He doesn't. I'm imagining he doesn't need to like ask her every time if he wants to kiss my mother, right? Like, and I don't think she will cry assault or something like that, you know. So clearly, like, you can build a rapport with a person. It doesn't have to take decades, right? It could take a lot. It'd be a lot shorter than that when you can read these things. But initially, because the question was posed on like the first date, you don't know this person. You don't know this person. And to say that you should be able to read clues, well, Swerve, I think his answer was his point was different from mine, but like he threw it in there. Well, what if you don't have the experience, right? What if you don't have the experience? And two, even if you have experience with many other women, you don't have experience with this woman, right? Like, what does she want, and how does she communicate? What does she think is obvious? Because what women, and this is like legendarily known, right? What women think is obvious, right? Like, oh, I did all these like nonverbal things, he never got it, and like, what's the deal? It was like I was practically screaming at it, but you weren't screaming it. You didn't actually say it, and the guy didn't know what the fuck was happening. Right? Like this is like a constant problem that we see. So now we're saying that within a situation where you've just met this person, or at least you've had very little romantic contact with them, at in a moment of pressure, right at the end of the date, like the modus operandi here should be to lean in and go for it and just like read the room and figure it out, right? Rather than instead having the culture that just ask. Just ask. It's better to ask. And God, there's so many other things here. But I think that like and the other thing I was going to say is that this goes two ways, right? It's a responsibility on both parties. This is a story I've told before. There was a woman
shaving. I'm sorry.
Shaving?
I just heard like somebody was shaving in the background. I think it's Pace. He's looking like he coughed. But... okay. You good.
Okay. All right, fair enough. But I've told the story before. I was having sex with this girl, right?
Consensual sex.
I didn't say that. No. Consensual sex with this girl. But actually, let's talk about what consent actually means in this situation, right? Because I'm thrusting away.
The nitty-gritty.
It was Doggy, right? I'm thrusting away, and she starts making these weird sounds, right? I'm like, I didn't know what to make of these sounds, right? I had no idea what to make of these sounds, right? So I stopped and I verbalized to her, "Hey, are you okay? Is everything all right? Are we still good?" Right? And she's like, "Yeah, everything is fine," right? And I keep going again, and then I stop again. "Are you sure everything's fine?" She's like, "No, everything's good. Keep on going." And then I go, and then eventually finish. And when we're laying down, she's like, "Oh man, yeah, you really hurt me there." What?
Yeah, why didn't you use... I checked in. You have to verbalize that.
You have to verbalize that, right? And here's the case. I specifically, like using my emotional intelligence, right? She was making a weird sound. And so like, I'm like, well, maybe there might be something wrong. And so I do the responsible thing to check in with this girl. And then she like lies to me and tells me to keep going, right? And so... And this is and another anecdote. This is not my anecdote. This is an anecdote of someone else who talked about it on stream. So I'm not like telling their secrets. A woman she comes on the street and she says like, yeah, like I was having sex with this guy, who was on he was on top of me, and he was going at it, and he was a nice guy, but like she was going through something emotional, right? And she was just like not okay, right? I don't know how she got herself in that situation in the first place, why they're having sex in the first place, but in any case, she was like disassociating or something, right? And he saw that, and he like checked in and he like stopped, right? And at that point, she couldn't communicate. But she was like, that's a problem on my end though, right? I'm lucky that I happen to have a guy with me who could see that, because most guys would not have seen that, and I can't blame them for not seeing it because I wasn't saying anything, right? But he was able to see it, and had a good ending for her there. But like if a woman doesn't tell you, then how the fuck are you supposed to know? So on both sides of the spectrum, you should communicate. That's the culture that we want in our society. Communication. And then eventually we might have that rapport, but you definitely can't rely on that in the first, second, maybe even third date.
But I feel like you pushed it to the finish line, because they even in the thing they acknowledge, and I'm sorry, even in the video they acknowledge like the level of thing you want to do can require like a higher level of consent. But the idea of like, okay, if you're on date 2, she's saying like you didn't kiss date 1, but said she had a really great time. She had a good enough time to come back on the second date with you. She was like, wow, I really enjoy this. You go through the hug, you're making eye contact, you're having body touching, whatever, like you're close, you're holding hands. Like you leaning in for the kiss.
And what would be wrong with asking then?
I mean, nothing would be wrong.
I think that I think that it can come like I'm not gonna use wrong because again, I think if she likes you, it's not gonna. I don't think it actually destroys.
If
the
she
date.
likes you, yeah.
But I'm saying that she came on the second date, but I'm saying that like if she I'm saying that I don't think it destroys. But I'm saying, what I would say would be a reason not to necessarily is it. I think it can say a lot about your confidence as a person.
Yeah, and that's the problem. This is what I'm fighting against, right? Because we put it in people's minds, right? And I got this too. Growing up, I saw the the sitcoms or the dramas or whatever, right? With like the first date, they're at the door, will he, won't they? Then sometimes he does it, and like it's great. Sometimes he doesn't, and then the lesson of the story is that he should have, or that he did try, but then he obviously didn't read the room, and then and so
but yeah,
it was
what's
a bad
the worst
idea.
case scenario with that though? Like
the worst case scenario is that you make.
And like,
well, then what's the worst case? Then what's the worst case scenario of him asking, right? Like because the error. Okay, so like, and this is the thing I wanted to get to. Like Swerve again. I'm reaching back to what he said, right? He's like, you're gonna make. He said something along the lines that you're gonna make these errors. But what are these errors, right? Let's not like disassociate what these things mean. Like these errors are points where a person feels like super uncomfortable at the end of it, right? When you guess wrong, because you're guessing is what you're doing, right? So you guess wrong, this person feels super uncomfortable, or because like you're so confident in your skills, right? As to like when a girl wants it or not, right? In terms of sex, that you end up assaulting her.
Again,
because
sex.
We aren't at sex, but hold on. But I'm saying this is all part of the same culture. When we tell people, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. When we tell people that you're not that a confident man, right, can simply read a girl's a body language and figure it out, then that tells men not to ask, and it tells women not to expect for them to ask, right, and that hopefully things will go your way. But sometimes it doesn't, and like you think a person honestly thinks on the same wavelength that you guys are pushing, right? That I can see. I read her body language and it was okay. So I'm not going to ask, and I push myself on her, and because she's scared, because that women do this. I mean, assault victims do this all the time. They like shut down for whatever reason, right? They shut down, and they just let it happen. That this must have been consensual, right? Like she didn't push back on me. She didn't she didn't like yell or scream or fight back against me, and I read her body language, so it must have been consensual. This is the same culture. So I'm saying the best thing to do is simply ask. What's the worst case scenario of asking?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree that there's nothing wrong with asking, but at the same time, I do think it's a confidence issue for a lot of people, for a lot of men, particularly since men are usually the ones that are supposed to be the aggressor in these situations. I do think it's a confidence issue, and I think the reason being is because uh, now with what we see in the media now with Me Too and everything, people are afraid that every woman that they encounter are going to be a victim of abuse or in many cases on college campuses where we've seen uh, an uptick in false allegations against young men, particularly young black men, that a lot of them are afraid that this could be a situation in that case. So it does cause an area where there's confidence that is that has been debilitated. But I don't think that you do away with the old fashioned way of doing it. I think the old fashioned way of doing it is just fine, and I think the new way of doing it, which is asking, is just fine as well. Or you could be like me and not like to swap spit with anybody in general. So kissing is the last thing that I want to do in the first place. 'Cause-
I don't know. I just think that this again. Well, there's two things. Again, there's one side of it like, okay, if you feel like you know what, I just want to ask, that's fine. But I think that the idea of like, if you don't ask at the kiss, you're gonna be a rapist is like the like
That's not what I was saying,
crazy
though.
opposite extreme. Like,
Can I get in here?
yeah, what's up, Don?
After you, Ben, go ahead. I just want to.
No, I mean
Yeah,
I'm
my-
gonna,
my
I'm
just-
gonna repeat the same points. You go ahead.
All right, so I think that I'm just gonna go back to the video. So she said it's a vibe killer, right? Consent is a vibe killer. And I think that like I've been in a relationship for 8 years. There's plenty of times my girl has told me, yo, you're killing the vibe, right? And my relationship didn't crumble into smithereens. Like you can get the vibe killed and that'll happen. And guess what? The more like maybe I want to flip the script and say as men, right? As men who are seeking women, right? Let us not think that it's a knock to our sense of self or our sense of identity or who we are to have a bad interaction or to have an awkward interaction where she says you killed the vibe. Maybe we should be more like, what if you just said, okay, I'm okay, vibe killed. Like, can we like? There's ways to get the vibe back. Like, you could ask a girl. I used to do that when I was young because I was a little, you know what I mean. I didn't have the confidence that I had when I met my girl. But you know, I'd ask girls like, "Yo, is it cool? Like, so like what?" And I do it in like slick ways. I'd be like, "So like, what if we kiss? Like, would you like?" I do stupid corny shit like that. Like, you know, to gauge where she was at, to gauge like where the girl was, if she was feeling me or not. And I think that it's something that as grown men and what we should be telling the younger guys is um you know, you shouldn't take it as a hit on your confidence or who you are if a girl rejects you or denies you or somehow, you know, saying because you was respectful that you're, you know, that's how somehow a negative knock on the interaction.
I think it's
like,
a vibe. I think
happens.
Yeah, no, I think it's a red flag for me if a woman would tell me that like, oh, you asked me, right? And I don't like that. I mean, you don't like that I checked in with
Like,
you.
I'm never gonna
right?
talk to you again.
Yeah, like I don't want to be involved with you. I think that's a problem, right? Like,
Yeah,
really,
that goes to what I said at the beginning. For me, the vibe killer isn't so much the asking; it's the response to whether the answer is yes or no. Like if I ask you and your response is you asked, you know, I'm like, okay, let's not have this conversation ever again. Or if I asked you and the answer is yes, and or somebody asks me and the answer is yes, and then the way that they respond to that situation, that's the vibe killer. I mean, you know,
they say like
either way, it
They say
takes courage and confidence either way to do it either way. Either you do the old style or you do it by asking consent. It takes courage and confidence to do it either
Mhm.
I
way.
agree.
Absolutely.
I agree on that. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, like
That's good. That's a good point.
like men are not or anyone else, right? Men or women, because they all go through this, right? We are not mind readers. We shouldn't be expected to be mind readers. And to say like, yeah, that killed the move. I was obviously sending signals, right? But then I'm telling you, right? I'm a bet, right? So I haven't seen this podcast, but I would bet I'll put money on it that like for every single one of those women who said like it's a vibe killer, right? Then they've been on first dates with a guy who went in for the kiss, right? And then he didn't like, and they didn't like it, right? They're pulled back like, oh, what were you doing? What were you thinking, right? Because they're not a fucking mind reader. So instead, like create the environment that hey, it's absolutely normal to ask for consent, and that says nothing about the guy's confidence because as Paige said, like it still takes bravery to ask, right? You're putting yourself out there, right? It's like asking you're out on another date, right? You know,
I got a question.
like that
Yo,
first time.
Herb.
Hold on, yeah, that
Sure,
first time you asked her out, right? That took confidence, and in this moment, right, after the first date, asking her again, that takes confidence. Like asking her to kiss takes confidence as well, right? We should put it in that way. And so like, oh, he did some sort of massive faux pas. No, because you don't like it when guys get the answer wrong, right? And when guys like are sure they have the right answer and they're wrong, then the results can be disastrous. So the better course of action, and there's literally no way you can argue against me on this one. I know you can't. Is simply to ask.
Is this connected to a timeline at all? Is it because it's new, or do you feel like if a person always acts the entirety of the relationship, would that also be just as fine? And that would be a society that you.
I think it would be if they had a
Wait, I
if they
just
had a
want to hear Prime
relationship
because
built
Prime feels
upon
really strong
trust.
about this.
So I can you explain the?
I'm saying like you're initially you were talking about like yeah, you know, you don't know this person, like maybe over time you build a rapport and it's so you learn and it's okay. But what if somebody didn't want to be okay? What if they always wanted to be sure and they always wanted to ask for the entirety of their relationship?
That's what they want to do.
That's fine too, right?
You think it's their business. I mean,
okay, cool. I know. Well, maybe I've talked to. I wouldn't say dated. I've talked to girls who that come off as like the really shy, whatever, quiet type of girl who like
slutty. Sorry.
no, who like
Okay.
who like no matter how much you like try to build up like comfort with them, they like they don't verbalize things. Like for example, if I'm sitting up playing a game or watching a movie or something, like they'll come over like, oh yeah, can I use your bathroom? Sure, use your bathroom. Yeah, whenever you want to, it's good. And then like they'll come over again, you know, and they'll be sitting there like shaking for like 3 hours, and I'm like, what's wrong? Like, oh, I had to use the bathroom. I was like, why didn't you go to the bathroom? Well, I didn't want to bother you because I didn't know if that was okay. And like I think that there is like a issue. I think there can be a legitimate it became a thing where it was unattractive. Like, why don't you have any confidence in yourself? Why don't you like feel any comfort in the situation of reading that things are okay? So I don't think women are crazy for saying like saying that they want to date guys who are able to who like it's a value to be able
the
to
opposite should be true. The opposite should be true, right? Like rather than because I know how the framework of this, right? The construction of this argument, right? It's like, well, the guy asked, so it shows that the guy is lacking in some way, right? Being confident, self-esteem, whatever, right? Swag, whatever they want to call it, right? That's the way these things are constructed. Instead, we should the opposite should be, hey, the expectation is that there should be some verbalization on both ends, and if you don't like to verbalize, or you're having trouble verbalizing, right? If you're a woman having trouble verbalizing, then that's something you need to work on, right? Like that's the problem here. We get that some people have these issues. And again, my friend who talked about experience on stream, she was saying this, like the problem was me, right? It wasn't him. Luckily, she had a partner who was like in tune with her, and that's fair. But like, if he had not been in tune, she wouldn't have been like, well, he's a fucking rapist, right? Because in that moment, I actually really couldn't consent because I was in the psychological state. She wouldn't have said that. She would have said, I failed in my job as an adult, right? Because we're talking about adults here. And my job as an adult to be able to verbalize my wants and desires. And then from there, it's his job as an adult to be able to respect those desires and work with me. Right? And so if that, just like those girls you're talking about, they are failing and they're to have grown up as an adult to do the responsible thing and just say, I don't want to piss myself on your fucking couch, right? I don't know. It's really pretty fucking simple.
But if they're not asking me, then they shouldn't do it by your standard because they have to verbalize it.
I mean, well, yeah,
No,
I mean,
I'm
they
saying
should. I'm saying they should. Like, if they have a problem, right? Like, there's an issue, then they should verbalize that issue. Like, I gotta go to the bathroom, like verbalize the issue. And hold on. Hold on. I was assuming that like you said something smart, but maybe you said something really stupid. Because is the thing you're trying to tell me is that you're equating like holding in your pee, right, to a person like going in and possibly assaulting another individual.
Again, we're not talking about assault. We're talking about kissing, holding hands, like very low level.
So you're like, this is the same as kissing, right? Like not going to the person's bathroom. Like that's the same as like
if you feel like
I
can't pick on my social cues, I need to ask to be positive that they're okay with this every time I do it. I think it's really dumb. Actually, the kissing is probably like the kissing has more cues.
I do think that those are a little too far off from being
because you
analytical.
You think going in for a kiss is sexual assault? That's the dumbest thing that's been said.
No, I didn't say it was sexual assault. I did say.
Why do we keep talking about assault?
No. I divided those things. I said there's the kiss, right, which can make someone extremely uncomfortable if you go in and you're not supposed to, right, because you're supposed to read a fucking mind, right? And then separately, there was assault when you were like messing around with a woman like. You're engaging in sex, right? You're about to.
But they said the higher level of thing requires a higher level of success. So again, let's just cut that off. That's not part of this conversation.
No, but it is. It absolutely is.
It's not context relevant to the video.
It's the same mind. And no, we've heard.
You're just talking about something different.
Don't bullshit me because you've heard this all before, right? You've heard guys say like, unless you're gonna lie to me right now, you've heard guys say like, well, I know I read the room and she was like into it.
Sure, some guys say that, but that's not this conversation.
Great, because it's the same.
This conversation is saying
it's the same argument
for sex, but you don't have to consent to hold a hand. That's what the context of this conversation is giving. So let's stick to the context of the conversation is giving.
I mean, technically,
or you can have a conversation with those guys that say that like I like to have sex with women with duct tape. Like I don't understand why we're having a conversation with people here.
Hold on, no. I'm saying that one the argument leads to the other, right? There is a clear argument here. Now you can say that I just want to talk about kissing, but I'm saying that like the not so slippery, actually the extremely slippery slope is where it ends in assault because it's the same argumentation we're using here. So, but in any case, even if it's just kissing, I'm saying that let's start with that. Let's start here and saying like let's normalize consent, normalize asking, right? And that like it's okay for men to do that, and you shouldn't think any less of them. In fact, you should think better of them for doing such a thing.
But I feel like you're doing that by also infantile. I'm sorry, this is the last thing, Swerve, because I keep cutting you off. Why am I being disrespectful? Don't let me disrespect you, Swerve. I'm sorry. I love you so much. There's a real level, like I feel like this is like what you're talking about, like, oh, a woman's got to be able to verbalize herself. I feel like this exact thing comes up. Like we're so worried about the idea of a woman being uncomfortable with a woman being uncomfortable, and like I think that like it's okay for a woman to also be, because the idea of a first kiss is uncomfortable for everybody. He doesn't know if he's going to be rejected. If she doesn't like it, maybe she has to lean her head back a little bit and like, oh, I actually like don't. And this is where it ends. Like these
what
things.
If he doesn't read? Hold on, what if he doesn't read that? Right? She leans his head. What if he thinks right? He's taller than her, and she leans her head back, right? And he's like, oh, she's like she wants me to go, and she's like putting herself in position, and so he keeps going, right? And then he keeps a kiss, and then she's got like to push him off, like, oh, maybe she's really into it, right? Because he doesn't understand nonverbal cues, right? And he's like, oh man, she's like super into him, and she's like trying to push him away, right? But we're not supposed to verbalize anything here, Bam, and so he just keeps on going. He was reading the room, and the room said, "Keep going."
Then the worst case scenario, you had like a weird kiss, and it's like, oh, I didn't like that.
And what was and compare that to asking. Compare that to asking. What would be that?
Asking, then a guy,
then she would have just said no, and he would have had to walk away. Then hold on. Okay, so let's judge these two things, right? Either the kiss happens, right? The very unfortunate kiss happens that we don't want to happen, or See, her simply saying no and him walking away. Which one of these is worse?
Wait,
Are they
wait a minute.
equal?
You
Or
went
is one-
went through.
is it
Wait a minute. No,
equal?
if this is the rape guy, he's got to stay the rape guy.
I
You
know.
can't say that the head turn guy rapes, but the no guy doesn't rape. The rape.
No.
This is King
The
rape
point.
rape law.
No. It's not that he's a rapist. No, the head turn guy would never rape. Like if a woman tell him no, he would say he would stop, right? But he's reading the room, and the room, according to him, is not that he thinks that she is not giving consent. She thinks he is. She is like, oh, I've
She's
gotten
like,
consent
turn your head.
through the nonverbal, right? Like this
doesn't
sounds
make
like
sense.
it looks like consent to me, so I'm gonna keep going, right?
My bad,
Because he-
Swerve. I can't engage with this man no more. What you got, Swerve?
Yeah, man. Nah, man, I got a couple questions, man. I might not remember them as I thought of them, but first, are you condemning completely the ability to read nonverbal communication?
condemning the ability. Why would I condemn the ability? I mean, like
Because
if you
it's-
Just
can,
ain't no one
great.
should do it, basically.
Yeah, because you're saying that the only consent should be verbal consent. So essentially, when it comes to matters of romance, there should be no.
I didn't say that.
No,
I didn't say
non.
that. I didn't say that. Right? I said the opposite, right? I said that when starting, because you don't know a person, it's best to ask for verbal consent.
Okay.
But then
Yes, your
as you
exact terms
get,
were that should be the expectation in the beginning.
yes, should be
That should be
expectation,
the
yes.
expect-
And then later on, right, you'll get to know. I brought in my parents, right, and other people in different stages of the relationship, they understand their partner. Don hasn't been together as long as my parents, but I'm sure he has like an understanding with his wife, right? You guys married, correct? Right? Yeah, his wife.
No,
he has a-
we're not married.
Oh, I'm
but
sorry. Excuse me. His girlfriend. I
That's fine.
apologize. But yeah, he has an understanding with her, so I'm sure he's not asking her for every little thing. Fair enough, right? So yeah, you learn these things, but it shouldn't be an expectation that you understand her nonverbal cues at the start. We should have the opposite expectation.
I understand.
You want
and I
to know
agree
what's
with
a
that.
good?
Wait,
Oh,
Swerve.
actually, go ahead. Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I agree
Yeah,
with that,
yeah.
and I agree with the fact that you say that having these that is tied to other things in rape culture and things of that matter. But what I don't, because where my point is the fact like you're talking about reading the room as if it's not effective. And my other question to you was like, do you not believe in chemistry? Like if you're on a first date, right, and you guys have already initiated the date, and let's say you brush hands and you brush hands more than once, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Do you not have that? You don't have to ask for the consent. You know what I'm saying? To hold hands with somebody, if it just happens, or if you guys are walking close to each other, you keep she's giving there's cues, there's things called cues, nonverbal cues. So I do think that the ability to read nonverbal cues is important. I don't think one takes precedence over the other, but I think that they are both something that you must put into limbo when dealing with somebody, because these unspoken chemistry factors are a part of a relationship just as much as the verbal things as well. And things like going in for a kiss should most definitely on a first date be verbalized, but I don't think it is a requirement because there are other cues that could hint towards that. And when I say the trial and error, like you said, getting pushed away, you could or could be a learning experience for you to not just lean in the next time. But like Don said, when he says, I would ask girls in a corny way about consent, you learn how to be smoother.
But Swerve, there's so much to this, right? One, I like what you said. Like these nonverbal cues are part of a relationship, right? Well, okay, yes, an established relationship, that's what they're part of. But they're not part of me. Like if I just like this is a completely non-sexual thing, right? If I just like run up and I'm just like meeting Don, right? Like meeting Don, like meeting in a coffee shop, right? He's a cool dude, like his hair, right? I'm like I said, like, oh man, I like your hair. Right? He says, thank you, right? I'm sharp in conversation, right? Like I'm not in any way expected to have to have known like his like likes or dislikes, right? His nonverbal cues. It's good to be able to read his nonverbal cues. Right? Maybe he's warming up to me, right? Maybe he wants me to sit down, like we left at a coffee shop. He wants me to sit down at his table and like talk for him longer. Maybe he does. But maybe he doesn't. Maybe I don't understand that. All right, and it should be up to both of us to like try to figure out what the other person wants in the best way possible. But I'm just saying the expectation. I'm not also saying, and I think I should be clear about this, right? That it necessarily has to be like an ironclad rule that yes, every single time, like in every single first date, that this must be the case. I'm saying that that should be the cultural expectation. And if you can guess correctly, right? Let's say like you guess 9 out of 10 times. All right. I mean, I guess sure. I think it's still better to ask, but like it makes sense that you don't, right? But I think the expectation should be that he's going to ask me. And then and this is the biggest point. This is definitely the biggest fucking point. Is that not everyone like truly understands nonverbals, right? We have a huge autistic community and they talk about this all the time. That they like in normal conversation, normal interactions, they have a lot of trouble understanding nonverbal cues. It's a big issue for them. It's a big issue for them in the workplace, when they're meeting friends, and when they're trying to like have a romantic partner. This keeps running in the way because other people are expecting them to read it, right? But they don't, and then awkwardness happens, and then they have terrible experiences, and people call them creepy, right? When what that person needed was just for you to clearly vocalize what you wanted, and then they could clearly vocalize what they wanted. Like, and that's so it's like literally ableist. Bam is an ableist bigot, right?
Oh, say it.
Because he doesn't take these people
They
into
could be
account.
they're
And the
incompatible.
best way. No, they don't have to be. But
No, but I'm saying that like
because
there could be an issue.
And I hate that the most because that's saying that like this person who otherwise you're cool with, otherwise you might be able to have a great relationship with, rather than working with them, just like if they were in a fucking wheelchair, right, and they needed help, you could see that hey man, they're not good with walking, so maybe we shouldn't go to place with the stairs. So maybe I should work with them on that, right? If this person is bad with nonverbal cues, just work with them on that, and maybe you could have a great relationship. But now you'd
like everyone's a good
I
fit to
guess
date someone with a
I'm
wheelchair?
incompatible. You don't. What Bam is screaming right now. Don't date autistic individuals. Don't date disabled individuals. Don't.
There's people who absolutely
don't
shouldn't.
date anyone who's divergent in any way. That's what Bam is saying.
There are people who are good fits for that, and there's absolutely people who are not good fits to do those.
There's nothing wrong with that. People. Look. One of my favorite pastimes. I might be showing my age, but one of my favorite pastimes. I don't watch as much as I used to because she retired, but I love watching Judge Lynn Toller on Divorce Court. And one of my favorite things is when they do Divorce Court Before Your Vows, and she always deals a compatibility test. And I think Bam's point is pretty accurate. Compatibility is everything. Compatibility to Swerve's part here too is part of picking up on those nonverbal cues. I mean, if you guys have been going out with each other long enough to have chemistry, to have a point where you're getting ready to make that first major leap into what could possibly be a long-term relationship, you would have wanted to be around them long enough to pick up on those verbal cues as to what they like and what they don't like, so that you don't have to play 20 questions every time you decide to go on a date. Now, is there anything wrong with that? No. I don't think overall that it should be the expectation. I think the expectation should be what it is now, the status quo. But there should not be a litmus test or a shunning of men who prefer to ask questions.
I think the reason I say that there's there could be a legitimate compatibility issue is there's people want, like, relationships aren't like a right in society. Like romantic interactions are just a choice people make to be as exclusive as they want to be. Like something that I actually used to do really bad is and I think every guy has this phase of like, oh, okay, you're going to get something to eat. You talk to a girl, what do you want? And for something is genetically in women that doesn't allow them to know what they want to eat.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable. But like, I was a person who like, I want, I can find, I'm an extremely picky eater, but like chicken fingers, whatever, I can find it on the menu anywhere, basically. So I'm like, I don't care. What do you want? And with girls, it always became a back and forth. Like, you just pick something. Like, what do you want? Just pick something. What do you want? And like, there was a point where like, oh, okay, nothing's getting done. and it kept happening from girl to girl, and I was like, oh, okay, I could, should I have a societal, expectation that like we need to teach women how to be able to make decisions on food places more?
Yeah, make them
Possibly.
pay their own bill.
But like what I ended up doing, I
Drizzle.
was like, oh, okay, I understand that what women want. I understand women don't like making this decision. I'm gonna give an A and B, like here or here. I give you a choice, and women are more comfortable making choices, and then we go to that place and we have a good time. Now, was I doing anything harmful by just trying to make sure that they ate at a place that they wanted to? Absolutely not. But I could also understand.
You verbalized, right? You adjusted your verbal communication with them in a way that was more productive, and then and then things worked out, right?
Sure, but I'm saying that like
verbalizing, not
I'm saying if I didn't change
them,
that,
right? You didn't just like flail, right? And then like, he means Japanese or
you
Mexican.
You have an expectation that I shouldn't have to change. Now I'm saying that like there was a
I have expectation that everyone should verbalize more.
I don't think I was doing anything wrong by verbalizing that I didn't care where we ate. Like, because that was the honest truth. That was the honesty of what I wanted. Let me just say this last part. But the reality is, I think that it was okay for women, from a compatibility standpoint, to say that like, golly, I just want to like date a guy who can make a decision for himself. Like if him wanting my approval in every decision he makes,
and you know what,
becomes
and
unattractive.
the best way to do that is to verbalize that. Hey, like, this is what I want, right? I prefer it when a guy decides where we're gonna go to eat, right? It's a little thing, right? It's not a very big thing, but like it just makes me feel more comfortable when I'm with a man who will just like make those decisions for me, right? And I've literally heard women talk about these things, right? They say like, there's like, I have 1,000 things running through my head, right? And I love it when I have a man who can take things off my plate for me, right? And so like. So if you want that, verbalize to him that like that's the thing that like I'm judging you on, right? This is a big thing for me in my relationship, and so then so he can meet those expectations or not meet those expectations. So that would be the best thing. So
it sounds like you women verbalizing that they don't want to have the responsibility of when they kiss in datings to be put on them. That seems like that's what they're verbalizing. They don't want that job. They want to date someone who can take that off their plate.
I'm saying that the consequences not verbalizing there. That's why it's important to talk about like the end game of that, because the end game of that is that people will get assaulted. So I'm saying that a better world is to have more verbalizations, right? But like and even within that, so if you want to make a one-to-one relationship with that one, right? Then what they would do at the start of the date is like, hey, I don't want to verbalize whether you kiss me or not, right? And so if you want to kiss me, right? If you think it's appropriate at the end, like give it a try, but like don't ask me because I don't like that. Verbalize that then. Verbalize that. If you want to be pedantic on that level, then verbalize that.
But now, does that change anything?
I mean, I understand.
Else
I
that
can
happens
agree with
later
things
on?
of that nature.
Does that prevent the assault that you were trying to prevent?
She's specifically saying that I want you to guess, and at that point, it's up to her, right? Like if that's what you want, hey, like guess, and we'll see what happens. Well, then it's up to her, right?
But you still end up in the exact. It doesn't change anything.
No, it absolutely does, right? Because the expectation has been set within the context of this relationship. Right, that you guys are forming or not, that you're deciding to form. What this person wants, what this person expects. So if you want to be pedantic like that, well then yes, then verbalize it directly to your partner. Right? Don't verbalize it in the air, in the ether, on a podcast somewhere. And so that guys must interpret it from there. Instead, verbalize it to your date. Verbalize. I don't like.
How does that decrease the chances?
If you want to get to second base, right? Just like reach for my boobs, and we'll see what happens. Like if that's what they're saying, then okay, you can do that, but then verbalize that.
But I'm just saying you're not pointing out how that makes things better. Like if your problems don't change at all by them saying that. There's still the possibility of getting it wrong. There's still the possibility of someone pushing something because they misread.
Well,
like,
actually,
all the problems you thought you had still exist.
The possibility of getting it wrong is actually neutralized in this case, and I'll give this credit to Prime. If the communication is there in the beginning and things are set up from in the beginning based off of a verbal contract, if you will, that takes care of every potential yes or no thing out there. You don't get it wrong because you already know what there is to expect. In the traditional sense of the way, it's still trial and error. You may get it right, you may get it wrong. You may get the exact same outcome as the person who's asking at the beginning. The only difference here is that the person who's asking for things in the beginning is they will always know ahead of time what to expect.
Yeah, like I would. In this case, it solves quite a bit. Like I said, first of all, if a girl seriously told me that, like seriously verbalized that to me, I'd hey, text me that. Like, text me those words, right? Let's have that in
I wouldn't go
writing.
that far, but
I absolutely would. Like, text me that. I don't like. I want you to verbalize because like you said, it's a verbal contract. But if there's a problem, hey, no, it's a text contract, it's a written contract. She's this is the expectation she said, and is that like I'm not supposed to ask her. That would be a problem. I'm supposed to guess, right? And so, if anything happens in the future, I put that out there. Like, if that's the case, right? If you're that fucking crazy. But when you actually say that, right? Like it lays bare how crazy it is, right? It lays bare that yeah, it's crazy to ask a guy directly because this is what they're doing. They're asking guys in general, right? But they're not asking a particular guy, just in general. Hey, don't don't verbalize when you want to kiss me, right? Just don't do that. But it sounds crazier when you have to tell a guy specifically, hey, don't verbalize when you want to touch me, right? Because that's crazy. Because it's a crazy idea. Instead,
touching is a higher level of consent.
that's what.
I mean,
What do you think you're doing? With your
I've
fucking
had
lips?
similar
What do you think?
experiences.
Hold on.
Yeah,
What do you think you're doing with
You
your
said
lips?
touching. I thought you meant sex. I thought you were just trying to push it back.
No, sorry, no. I meant kiss. Yeah, touching, kissing. I was looking simply. But yeah, yeah, go ahead.
like Prime. I mean, I have similar experiences. I have one chick that I had. I don't date her. We just kind of a friends with benefits type of thing, but it's just same thing. Like when we're together and we're going to do anything, I never make any moves, and she gets upset with me because she feels like, oh, you're not verbalizing, you're not making any real types of gestures. I feel like you don't want me here. So they so what they said to me was, I would prefer it if you would do such and such a little bit more. I prefer if you would touch me more, if you would embrace me more, if you would do other things. I'm like, okay, it's not my type of thing, but if that's what you like when we're together, I changed the way that I am because of what they told me that they like. That's what I think Prime is going with this, Bam. I think it's just that simple. If when they give you verbal communication, verbal cues on what they would prefer, it makes it easier for you to adjust to what they like.
I mean, I guess, like I said, I'm again, if you're a person that absolutely like, if your biggest concern just says like, golly, I might be a rapist, you have to happen to me. Like, I don't have the ability to read. Then yeah, if asking was not going, if someone who likes you, it may stop you from getting that kiss that night, but it's not gonna like destroy the entire fabrication of a relationship if she likes you.
I wanted
Well,
to say
I
I
have-
wanted to say something about the video. Just I know you guys are kind of in the I know you guys are in the middle of a very nuanced
No, you're
thing,
fine.
but
It's not that
I think
nuanced.
that
Bam's an idiot. It's pretty simple. Go ahead.
um that's a response. No, I think that the fact that she's saying, right, that this guy asked her for a kiss and that killed the vibe is actually an indicator that she's actually interested in him. That's my take. I think that if a woman is frustrated that you're asking for consent and killing the vibe, that's because she probably feels like she's throwing obvious signals and you're not picking them up. And now she's dealing with an idiot. Or not an idiot, but actually, sorry, that's insensitive. You're dealing with somebody who is not as adept at picking up what she's putting down, right? And so, but here's the thing, right? If he's a savvy individual, he won't make that mistake twice, right? He might make it another time, but eventually he's going to learn this specific woman if he wants to deal with her in the coming years. And those like what Prime's saying about out the gate, you should come asking questions. That's fine at first, but I think that Prime would agree that over time, there's going to be less things that you need to, like, the things that you need to ask questions about are going to evolve and change because you're building trust, you're learning how these people operate, and you're not going to be saying, "Can I kiss you?" fucking 8 years into the relationship. Like, but maybe the first date, the very first date, even if you feel it in your body that this is the right move, maybe just be like, women have expressed this to us too. They say it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it. And one way that you could say, "Hey, can I get a kiss?" is not saying, excuse me, like, would it be okay if
Is your
no,
voice
you say like,
shaking? Yeah.
you say something like, "Damn, I would really like to kiss you right now," or "Damn, I want to kiss you right now." That's direct, but it's also leaving room for her to be like, "Nah, I'm not with that." And then you just fucking take your L and you go home. Or she's like, "Damn, like, he's so forward, he's so direct. Like, I like that." You could totally flip the script and consent can still be a part of that conversation. What people don't really know is that's what game is. Game is when you swoon a woman, right? And part of swooning a woman is making her feel comfortable in your presence. And that's not by brutishly saying, "Can I kiss you right now, bitch?" No, it's like you gotta be suave. There's a reason why Fresh Prince was the Fresh Prince, because he knew how to. He just had that. It was amazing to watch Will Smith on the screen talking to women. You'd be like, "God damn!" But he had writers. You know what I mean? That's why the nigga had writers.
I'll tell you how me and my last relationship, how we had sex. We actually ended up having sex on the first date, which I had no expectation of. The first of all, there was levels of like me saying the corniest thing in the world to get the kiss consent, and then like non-consent carried out the night to like where I didn't even expect. So I guess I was 21, 22. I was young enough that I was like, you say dumb stuff. Like, I remember we were on a date. She had some chapstick or something, and then she was like, "You want some?" And being a lame nigga I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna get mine later. I'm gonna get mine from the source." Basically saying like getting the chapstick off our lips, like kissing.
Okay.
Like that was my way of basically setting the tone of I'm going for a kiss.
Yeah.
And then she just laughed. But like later on, she told me in the relationship that was like lame as shit. Like, what you saying? I was like, I don't know, it worked. But how we ended up having sex was literally get her back to her place, go for the good night kiss. And we're in the car. So I'm like, "Oh, okay, have a good night." And then she stays in my car. And I'm like, "Have a good night." Like we talk a little bit more, and then like she stays in my car. So I'm like, "Oh, okay, she's not trying to leave." We didn't say any words, but I was like, "Oh, okay, she wants to have sex now. That's clearly why she's not getting out of the car." Like that, and we went, and it happened, and whatever, relationship worked out till it didn't. But like there's like this combination of things that can like. Would it have been? Would I have had sex with her that night? It wasn't even great sex. It was actually terrible for a first time. But would we have had sex that? Because I'm too old. I was too old at the time to be having sex in the car. I was like, it just was weird. But would it have happened that night if I put her on spot? Like, "Oh, are you trying to have sex? Are you trying to have sex on the first date? Is that what you're trying to do?" Like, how do you think she would have actually answered that question?
There are other ways
I don't know.
there's other ways to ask that question. But like, I mean, like what Don was saying, like there are ways to ask this question that are better or worse.
I got my answer though. I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's impossible to people do figure out nonverbal cues, right? And there are lots of like happy endings, whatever. With that, fair enough, right? I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm saying that we want a culture where it's okay to ask. In fact, it's encouraged to ask. Like that's that's a Mark IV man that he asked the woman rather than a mark against him, right? Now you can still in that environment, you can still guess and it can still work out. Again, that's fine, right? I don't think there should be a federal case if you don't, but we want the culture to say that the expectation should be you ask, right?
Sure,
Like,
okay,
and
but
I like that
do you,
because he cares about my feelings. He cares about what I want, right? That's the type of man that I like. That's the type of man that I want my daughter to find, right? A person who like cares about her desires, cares enough to ask and respects it when she tells them, right? Like that's what we want in the world. So let's make that happen.
okay, but I guess just to round this out, do you acknowledge that there are probably a million scenarios or whatever, like that a guy can tell you that he acts in like a terrible way, that like, oh yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean she didn't want to, like you did actually kill the vibe.
Yeah, like I said, like with Don, right? Like your voice is like shaking, and you're like sweating bullets, right? Like, it's not gonna work out, right? I'm sorry, it's not gonna work out.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
like
But
I would.
but the thing is, but there's a, and it doesn't mean like her saying no. Like again, it's fine because like I said, I'm not anti asking. I'm just anti the idea of like requiring asking. But the like that in that moment, it could have been something that like if you would have went for it, like you decrease your odds of being like sexually assaulted, like or assaulting her or like making her uncomfortable. But like you also increase your odds of it not working out. Like you can ask in a poor way that a girl like says no, not because she doesn't want to do it, but because you did something that like make
Yeah,
like to
and
ruin
and
the
if that's the deal breaker for the relationship, if like everything else worked out, right? But this guy asked you in an awkward way, and then that was a deal breaker. Well, then this is not the type. This fickle bitch is not the one I want to like build a
I think she has to
relationship
be a
with.
problem. I think that
Yeah.
being a smooth person is an aspect of a relationship.
Okay, well then we're incompatible. Then in that case, we're incompatible because guess what? I'm not actually smooth, right? That ain't me. So
I think
like if that's the limit, then whatever, right? Like I think it's better that we build a world where we don't want people to be uncomfortable, have some really awkward situations, and some people have, and this is another part that we haven't talked about. Some people literally have trauma based on this, right? Like now, it makes like the going after that kiss may seem nothing to us, right? And I think for the vast majority of people, it's nothing, right? Whether it's wanted or it's not wanted, right? It's like not like the end of the world, right? But people have trauma around these things too, right? And it'd be best if we like took all these things into account and just ask. I didn't say require, right? I didn't use the word require, and maybe that's the schism between us, right? I never said require, but just build a culture where that's expected, not just expected, but like it's encouraged, right? Rather than to shame a man for it, you're saying like, oh, that was great. Now, it's also like a man might have not asked, right, and it worked out, and that's fine. But like that's something neutral rather than
But
like
you sounded like you
something
were
in the
shaming a girl for saying that. Like, actually, I would prefer a guy who just who did read. Like, it sounds like you were trying to shame that behavior.
I'm shaming them for shaming men, right? So I'm shaming them for saying that like men who do that like don't have charisma, don't have game, don't have whatever, right? And they're like vibe killers. I'm
I
shaming
don't know if
them
they
for
necessarily said
doing
that. I
that.
think they just said it kills the vibe. Like they personally wouldn't.
Okay,
no,
well,
because I
yeah.
mean isn't that one of the common double standards that men often express about like for example flirting in the workplace, right? If it's one guy, the flirting is totally acceptable, but if it's the troll janitor, right? Now it's a problem, right? These are things that are very real, and although it may not be completely fair, it does happen. And I think that as like we are all men, right? I think that one thing that would behoove us is to, because we can set the tone as well. The way we approach and the way we do things, we can set the tone. I think that we can say, okay, I want to be in this. I want to create a space where I'm protected, right? I know that there exist these things that can cause a woman to feel uncomfortable and could potentially lead her to seriously like try and affect my life. And I think that we should be smart. We should also be smart because there are people out there who want to not even that, just miscommunication can hurt people in ways that you never intended, and you shouldn't. I don't think you should want to do that. I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big buy into like communication and like generally like again, even though like I probably don't generally ask related to kissing, like I am generally a big component advocate for like the thing that makes a relationship healthy is communication, like strong verbal communication on your wants, desires, or your dislikes. Something that I don't get is the concept of surprises. I don't like surprises happening to me. I don't like I like in the
I'm with you
ideal
on that.
world, I wouldn't
Mhm.
surprise other people. Like as far as like birthdays, gifts, I would much rather you tell me the thing that you want and I get you that thing and we'd be happy. But there seems to be a real phenomenon. Not just phenomenon. There's a real something in I think most people's minds that tells them like, okay, I enjoy when a person does the thing without me having to explain it to them or tell them. Like and I don't know what that is, but it seems like that's the thing that's being pushed to the front. That's what women are talking about.
Spontaneous events aren't bad if there are something if it's something simple, like if I woke up and let's say I was married, I woke up and my wife had already paid all of the bills and I got to keep my money. Heck, that's a very nice spontaneous thing there. It's a nice surprise because I like to keep my money. uh, but I do agree generally with the idea with the concept of not wanting to be surprised on most things. I'm a little bit different when it comes to the gift thinking. I don't have any desires or wants that I don't already fulfill for myself. So if somebody gets me a gift, it doesn't matter what it is to me. If it's something that I can use, I'll use it regardless of whether it's something that I would have bought myself at all. As a matter of fact, uh, I prefer that nowadays when I get a gift that it's probably a pair of socks or underwear because I don't know how, but for some reason that's the hardest thing to shop for and the hardest thing to keep a hold of. I can never figure out where all my fucking socks are going. And so I mean, but for me it's a little bit different. I understand uh the concepts and like you're saying, communication to me is the backbone of any good relationship. Communication and reciprocity in my case is 100 100, not 50-50. I don't understand these people with the 50-50 nonsense. It's you give me what I give to you, because the way I consider relationships of any kind, it's always involving business. And my camera just turned off for some reason, but I'll have to swap my cameras because this one looks like the battery might have died on it. But uh, in my understanding of relationships, I treat them all like business. It's all about money. It's all about the investment. So if well, even time is an investment too. If I am putting something into this, I want to get back out of it what is my value and my worth. And if you aren't able to apply that for me, then there's some incompatibility there that we need to discuss.
So I thought I had first thought you were gonna say like you woke up, your wife giving you a blowjob. That's why I thought you were going with that.
But
But
that's expected.
Pace, you're a different type, right? You're a different type of person, and we love you for it. Because you're not dirty like I am. But on that note, right? Like one, that's never happened to me. I would love it if I woke up and a girl was giving me oral sex. That would be freaking. That would be a
I had to go
great.
try once. I like kneed her in the chest, but it was like a reflex.
Okay. Okay.
Like I like knocked all the wind out of her. She was like, I was like, what did you do? Like don't and I realized well, I mean, think about it, like if you sleep and all you feel is something like pulling down your pants. Come on, that's a human reaction. I don't know how people get that up.
I would have my pants off for this because I usually like sleep with my pants on, right? I don't sleep in a nude. But like in this case, like
Sleeping in a nude is
it,
what all people should do.
okay.
I've definitely had a situation where a girl and where somebody woke me up to them on top of me.
Okay.
And you know what? I should have because at first I was like, oh, what the fuck? I was like, damn, I was asleep, you know. But then I was like, this is pretty dope. But at the same time, I was like, I was like,
It's an initial reaction, like you're in that
yeah,
grind.
it's
You're
like, but here's
what
the
is
thing,
going
right?
on?
I was kind of pissed off at the same time. I was like, yeah, it was a weird. It's like there are gonna be times where I don't want to do that, and I am too tired. And you better not force yourself on me.
Oh, you
that
better
shit-
guess. You better guess.
it's-
But on that note, right? Like, yeah, Bam might
can't-
beat the shit out of your girl about the girl if she does that to him. So I don't know. But in any case,
she creeps up. He's like,
bitch. Wait. But on that note, right?
Bear still has his eyes closed. Like,
The headlock. But on that note, right? So like one, I think I communicated that to my ex-girlfriend that like I wanted, like that'd be nice if like someone like woke me up with a butch. I think I communicated that, but it never happened, right? But on the other
I
end,
think I communicated effectively.
she communicated to me that she didn't like it when guys like woke her up doing stuff to her, right? Like that's something that happened to her before. It's like whatever, but she didn't really like it, and so I never did that to her. She communicated that. Oh, if she didn't say that to me, I would have done it, right? On the other end, what she did like was she had like really sensitive like nipples, right? And she liked like me to play with her nipples as she's falling asleep. But she like me playing them at all points in time, right? Like if I get my hands on them, she's like just play with them. I love that shit, right? But like as she would go to bed, right? I would just as she's falling asleep, I'd be like messing with her a little bit. But she liked that, right? She verbalized to me like many times, I love this, and so I provided that. And she verbalized, hey, but like once I'm asleep, don't just like stick your dick in me like to wake me up or something, right? And so I didn't do that, and that was good all around for everyone. No bad consequences from
I'll
that.
always, again, and maybe like I said, I'll literally if a girl's in my bed and we've like hooked up, or even if we haven't hooked up yet, like literally what's gonna happen. This sounds really rapey. What's gonna happen? What like my move is always okay. Boom, like we're
Hey, so we can hear your breathing in the mic.
So boom.
yeah. So boom, I'm gonna
So boom.
We're gonna spoon. I'm gonna like
we was chilling.
grab her and like pull her into me, like all the way into me, and then like after a moment, it's gonna go like slowly but surely. Boop, I'm under the shirt. Boop, I'm cupping the titty. I'm cupping your titty, and once we get there, like double play and like, all right, now action, baby. We in the game. Like that's how it goes to. Yeah, like 100% of the time, it works. Some of the time, that's what I go to.
But anyway, so we can move on from this. But this is, I think it was interesting. And I want to actually bring this subject. I've written it down. I want to bring the subject on the other panel, the Reverie, because I want to hear more perspective on this. Because we have a much different makeup than we did back then. So I'm curious what they would say about this now. But like this thing is, I think it's interesting. The like the different perspectives on this, right? And
Sorry.
oh, you go ahead.
No. I was gonna tell a quick story about when I hope my girl doesn't get upset at me sharing this, but but nobody knows who my girl is, so it's fine.
Yeah, me just called.
She would say.
Go ahead. Yeah, sure.
She would say. She would say like, yo, like one of these nights, like surprise me at night. And I honestly, I think I did it once, but I was uncomfortable with that shit because that to me is like way out of the realm of my just of my concept of how I approach a woman. Like to just wake her up with a dick is crazy to me. Like that to me is crazy. Like, but at the same time, if two people see, the thing is like a lot people can change depending on just the chemistry and the connection that people have. So like, although I might have been a more meek individual before I met my girl, she could have opened my eyes to certain ways of being more dominant in ways that still kind of have consent involved. And I think that there's way like I got taught that. And but that's because I was more of like I'm gonna play the safe side, you know. I don't wanna overstep. I was always that kind of person, like super cautious to the point where like I would miss out on opportunities to date women because I wasn't smooth enough yet. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't pick up on and I think that that's the flip side to what you say, Prime. It's like as much as you want to say like yes, ask. There are some women who just don't. You're gonna lose favor in their eyes, and that's like you're constantly playing with that. Oh, is
Dude,
this
that's
too
my
much?
point.
Yeah,
That's my
right.
point, though, right? Like
Yeah.
we should change the culture, and so that there's less of those women.
I
And
don't say so much change the culture. I just say change the woman you're interested in, because like what you said earlier, Prime.
But
If a woman is turned off by you asking, she's not the right woman for you in the first place.
that's not necessarily true. You can turn off a woman and then turn her right back on, bro. That's
You
not
turning me
necessarily true.
on? Who is that? Kerry Hilson?
Uh, I wanna
I'm not.
know
I'm
what
not saying
turns
that
you
you. I'm not saying that you
on.
can't. But what I'm
I
saying
wanna know.
is if the catalyst to her being turned on or off is whether or not you ask for consent, she's not the right woman, because no person should be
How,
offended when you're asking for a
but
consent.
I'm
I don't
saying
think that's
that's the
true.
expectation we set in girls' minds. The reason why so many of them feel that way is because we set the expectation. Like popular media set the expectation. So let's change that. And so there's less people like that. And for the ones left, like yeah, like if you're gonna be weird like that, then that's fine. You can be weird by yourself, but I don't need to be involved with you. Um, Here's something on the other extreme. Well, okay, two things. One for Don, like I wanted to do that for a girl. I don't wake her up with dick, right? Like that sounds really exciting to me. I've never done it before. Because one, no one's expressed that they wanted to do that with me.
It's not
And
all what it's worked up to be.
okay, fair
wait,
enough.
what
Uh,
isn't? What isn't where all it's worked up to be? Sorry.
Uh, Waking up, surprising somebody by having sex with them.
I definitely,
It depends how horny you are, honestly.
yeah, I'd like to. Anyway, but it's something I'd always want to try, right? But
It's a
on
linear
your end,
relationship.
it's great. It's great that your girlfriend verbalized that to you, and I don't know what you said back, but like I think it would have been great for you to verbalize. Well, I don't feel comfortable with this, right? And for this reasons, and maybe that would be a moment for you guys to talk, right? To get her, for her to get you where you are now, to say like, oh, I hear what you're saying, right? But like you felt like the reason why you felt that way is because you think you want to be cautious, and that's a moment for her to tell you, well, you can be less cautious with me, right? Like I'd like it
Yes,
if you like do those types
exactly.
of things, and that
Yep.
happens when you verbalize. There was no
Mhm.
guessing game here. You verbalized it. On the
Sorry.
far side of this, right, the very far side of this, I had a family member who told me about this guy in her friend group. There's a friend group, it was a mixed friend group, guys and girls, right? And there's one guy, I never met this dude, which is good because I would have like broken his fucking nose. There's this one guy who like he would do things and like make the girls in the group like seriously uncomfortable all the time, like all the time, to the point where they told me like both my family member and then she talked about like another girl, at least one other girl happened in that friend group where he would like just like they were laying on a couch and he would like jump on them and like kiss and like grope their breasts, right? And they just like sat back and like let it happen, and then he would just like walk away. Everything that I heard about this guy, again, I never met him, but everything that I heard about him like leads me to believe this dude was like severely autistic, right? That like he couldn't recognize cues, and that was a big ass problem. Um, but on the other side of it, right? I also want to, and this is not PC, right? There's not a PC thing to say, but the blame should lie on those women because uh, my cousin, my family member, right? My cousin, I can just say that. My cousin, right? Um, like they said, like, oh yeah, I would kind of just like let it happen. Like, yeah, I didn't like it, but just like whatever. This is just him. I'm just let this happen. I remember like yelling at my cousin about this, right? Like, okay, good. Like, I'm glad you're not traumatized about this like awful experience that you happened. But this guy is going around. He doesn't even realize. I don't think he realizes he's assaulting people.
You're
You
right.
guys are just letting him
You
do
have to
this.
correct his behavior. Yeah.
You have to correct his behavior. And to do that, verbalize this shit. Hey, this is not okay. Knock this shit off. This is wrong. Give him at least. So again, I never met him, so I'm assuming no one ever did tell him, right? But give him a chance to correct himself, because if not, he's going to do that to a girl, and it's going to severely traumatize her. So again, guys, verbalize yourselves.
So do
It's
you think
only
that that's
done
where reading the room could be applicable? Because like, couldn't you tell that you're making people uncomfortable and
But he
having the
couldn't.
ability to discern that? But I'm saying, so that's why that shouldn't be casted away as something that's not important. Because if you are unable to just understand that these type of things are making people uncomfortable without even having to have personal or like verbal consent, then that's a problem as well.
There's two, in my opinion, here in this situation. There's two people in the wrong, right? Well, multiple, because lots of people are involved in this. But like the guy is in the wrong for not asking, hey, like, can we mess around, right? And the girls are in the wrong for not saying, hey, don't mess around with me. Like, knock that shit off. Don't just jump on me. Because he would just like spring out of nowhere and do this thing, right? So I'm saying on both ends.
Maybe we should. I think we could really we could actually make a connection point to the N-word discussion, and I'm gonna try it. Because imagine, right? Let's say this guy that you're talking about, Prime, right? I want to pose like a hypothetical. Let's say this guy came from like his old friend group. That's like the women he was around accepted that, and they were all just kind of, that was just where maybe he was in a prior situation where that was accepted, right? And now he's going into this new situation with these people, and he's not reading the room, and he's getting himself into social situations where people feel uncomfortable around him, but he can't perceive the uncomfortability because maybe he is socialized in a way that around friends that's acceptable, right? This is kind of like what you get when certain people like for example, right, you have a white person who's like, yeah, I grew up in a city where I was allowed to say the N-word, and then I took a trip to New York and they heard me say it and everybody was questioning me. It's like you're going from a place where now your situation is egregious, because I don't know if I would ever accept that as a way to behave with people, to be honest with you.
It's unbelievable.
So like
It's disgusting.
so it's even a bit extreme, but at the same time, if I'm gonna back it up a little bit and think, okay, how could you properly judge this person's behavior and give them constructive criticism as to how this is not okay, and try to understand, like, okay, how is this person not just a terrible human being, and how can I understand like how a person can even get to the place where they think this is okay, like not for their sake, because there are certain things that you can do that I don't care how you came to the conclusion that you thought that was okay. You should be reprimanded for it and punished for it. So I'm not saying, that's kind of like for myself to think, okay, so the way that people like the amount that people need to be able to understand social cues, how much are we going to fault them when they don't? Like, where's that trade-off?
I think that with the case that I brought up, again, it's an extreme case, and I stated that
Yeah.
before. I think there's been a lot of failures, right? A lot of failures that led up to those moments, and along the way, it's like there are people who should be able to sit this guy down and let him know, hey, this is not okay. I get that you have trouble with social cues, right? But like, this behavior is dangerous, and you could hurt someone, right? And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Again, I never met this guy, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he is not like a straight up rapist, that he just like wants to like assault women or whatever, right? That's not like what is in his head. He just thinks this is okay, right? And so and I would guess that for a lot of guys, right? Because a lot of guys aren't like uncontrollable like sexual beasts, right? Like the rapists, like are uncontrollable sexual beasts. I think a lot of these situations is guys who like don't understand that they're doing a wrong thing.
I hear this.
Hold on. So what I'm saying is that no problem. But I'm saying that there's like the whole list of failures. There were failures from their parents, right? Not talking about these things. Failures maybe from teachers, from friend groups who maybe heard stories from them and just like laughed it off. Didn't like, hey, then say like maybe we should re-examine your behavior here because this sounds kind of rapey, dude. Like this is like not okay, right? And then it comes from maybe, and I again, this is not PC to say. It comes from maybe the women that they might have interacted with that maybe you should have said something that this person like if all of them acted like my cousin, it didn't say anything. Well, then he just is gonna keep doing this, right? So, like let's give people a chance to be better, and not hurt someone, right? But on the other end, right? Like if you, let's say for one of these girls, that he did the same thing, but she was like straight up traumatized. Like I was sexually assaulted, and like I gotta go to therapy and all that, right? If she wanted to press charges, yeah, it's fair too. It's fair too. Like this guy, like we failed this man, like society failed him, but he it was the wrong one, and now you got to deal with those consequences. So
we should probably do both. I think that I think that even in your world,
I just wanted to say one thing to the Van real quick.
Yeah, you go.
I think like because I think about a lot of these conversations are so good because I legit think about I put myself in the position of what would I want to teach my daughter, right? What kind of tools would I want to equip my daughter with so that she could protect herself? And what I think about is like I've heard stories about women who say like there are women who touch them inappropriately, who slap asses, touch boobs, and women have expressed this to me like that girl makes me feel uncomfortable. She's very like touchy. Like I don't know if she's like into me, but like I don't want to say anything because like it's whatever. Like I've heard these things. So it's not like women only deal with unwanted touching from men. It's just that we should teach all genders, right? To say, hey, respect yourself, respect your body, respect the body of others, and don't put your hands on people. Like don't allow people to just put their hands on you. And if you do want somebody to embrace you, you make sure that you vote that. I like what Prime's saying with that. You vocalize that and make that the way that we teach children is to say, hey, I don't like this. I do like this. Because at the end of the day, like we fail men when we don't teach women how to vocalize themselves. We do fail men in that regard, and we fail other women, and gender, whatever, rearrange it all. Like you know what I mean? Yeah. Absolutely.
I would want that for my daughter too. I was exactly what teacher like vocalize yourself. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Bam.
Oh, I was saying that like we probably it's probably should do both, a little bit of both of the idea of like, sure, even if you want to create your future that has more that like people are more comfortable having stronger communication and more verbal cues. I don't think that there's probably a lot of structure in like teaching the recognition of social cues. Like it would be strange. I'm gonna use an extreme example, but like it would be strange to like you walk to a restaurant, you see a complete stranger sitting at the bar, and then they're like bawling, crying, like, and then
isn't the
I wonder if something's wrong with them. Like, I don't know, we haven't asked. Like, I think we understand that human beings can do things that gives us like that feeds back into like recognition patterns.
But isn't the existence of autistic people evidence that sometimes you can't just learn social cues, that there are people out there who don't pick up on it. We live in a world where
we should build a world that works with like with autistic people, but the world can't be for autistic people. We can't no. That's not like an appeal to the lowest common denominator, and I don't think that's the way.
I understand. You're right. But there are ways that we don't have to hit the pedal to the metal and say you need to line out and outline every single interaction because autistic people can never pick up on a social cue, and there are things that will benefit people who have problems with social cues and people who have like other types of traumas that cause them to exhibit the same type of signs, and they might also require this type of accommodation. Like maybe when you're saying it's the lowest common denominator, really what would be super useful is like where it's a slightly above that common denominator, where we're picking up where we're slightly changing and evolving the culture to keep up with the different ways that humans are continually kind of socially evolving and expressing themselves, and because I would say that like things have definitely changed since when before women couldn't work, and now that women are more out like in the public interacting with men, that we need to evolve our framework to deal with that. And I don't think that we should act like we should probably be more proactive as opposed to docile about the situation. We should go at it thinking, yeah, we're going to be having these types of interactions. We know that there's people out there that don't get social cues. Maybe we should up the baseline a little bit to incorporate
Uh,
some of these new things.
I'm of the opposite opinion. I think that sure, you should be accommodating to people. However, I don't think that you should have uh, a a grandiose vision of changing the world expectation for how to deal with people on a general basis. I think that's largely the problem that's going overlooked. I think Bam tried to get us to recognize earlier that nobody really looked at. The problem that's going overlooked in this situation is the individuals involved. If you treat people on an individual basis and become accommodating based on the person you're talking to, that changes the equation entirely. Treat people for who they are and how they are, as opposed to blanketly treating everybody the uh, as I said earlier, as an automaton. Sure, you want to have a accommodations to treat everybody with equal respects and treat everybody the same way, but everybody is an individual, whether they're artistic or not. And some people get cues, some people don't.
Yeah,
You
but
should
even
adjust your dealings with people based on how you pick up cues around those individuals.
but Pace, you said it yourself. You said maybe we shouldn't make fun of people and because of their lack of confidence in certain social
Oh yeah,
interactions, right?
I
But what I'm
don't
saying is
believe
that
that you
might
should do
be
peer
a bit of
pressure
a
like that.
what I'm saying is what part of that is getting people to understand some of the pitfalls and the nuances of people's ability to socially interact. No, isn't getting to understand each other more better than less understanding? Like,
In that case, I think you're painting with too broad a brush. I don't think it is the job of greater society to cater to the individual quirks of common individual people.
but I would expect white people to not say the N word to cater to me as a black man in society.
I mean, you would, but
Don't say
in the
that shit
wor-
around
and
me.
you would, but in a world where i- anybody can say what they want, anybody can say what they want. They have to deal with the consequences afterwards. That's just how it is.
Yeah, but maybe we don't have to get to that place. Maybe we can have common respect, right? And we don't even have to get to that place.
We
Well,
did
that's what I said.
change.
If you treat everybody with the same basic accommodations of kindness and general understanding, that's one thing. But
But expecting people
on
to
an
know social
individual,
cues is not that. Expecting people to pick up on social cues is not that, right? We understand that there are people who don't get it, right?
I kind of want to. I want to transform
Uh,
this conversation a little bit. No, you're fine, Don. But because Pace said something right, like you shouldn't expect to change. Yeah, these cultural wide changes. So let's adjust this for a little bit. Because I brought up the disabled, right, and how Bam is a vicious
The
ableist.
raging
Right?
ableist.
Yeah. but like there was a cultural shift here, right? It's a massive one, the one we don't really talk about. But there was a massive cultural shift in the way we treat the disabled individuals, right? Like one,
Absolutely.
we used to treat people in wheelchairs we would call them like the R word, right? For if a person who was like in a wheelchair, and society would be offended if they were be asking for like a little help, right? Like we had buses that weren't designed for them, and they couldn't get
Mm.
on. And we would have they protested these things, right? It was like a civil rights movement, like the disabled did in the nation, right? For their accommodations, they would like stop buses saying like, you can't go because like, hey, like we can't use these public accommodations, right? You need to account for us. And people were like, you would see they would assault the disabled people in wheelchairs, right? Things that we wouldn't think of doing now, right? But they would assault them. Like, who are these freaks to ask us these things of us, right? And like they would think less of their intelligence. All these things happened because we had these crazy ideas about the disabled, but they fought hard. And they got the American with Disabilities Act, and it changed the world, and it gave us like more ways, like the ramps, the wheelchair ramps, and all kinds of other things that has changed in our world. We changed the culture. We changed how people interact with disabled people, and that's a good thing. We can actually do that. We can actually expect to change the culture. I think that's a good thing to strive for. But when we're talking about homosexuals, right? Like the culture has changed. Where you could just like it was easy to just punch a gay kid, and you would be zero consequences for that. And now in this culture is different, and that should be the case. We shouldn't be assaulting them just because they love someone differently.
Doesn't saying homosexual feel weird?
Oh my God.
Like,
it does feel awful.
it's
Like
correct.
when,
It's not like colored. Like I'm not saying this to that degree.
I know.
Like it's not offensive, but it just feels strange. Like
Yeah.
Like,
shout out to all the homosexuals.
It's too. You know what it is? You know what it is?
Sexual
It's too specific. It's too specific.
Yeah. I just it's the word that came to mind first, but yeah, fair
Gays.
enough. I hear you.
They
Yeah.
said Rocky called that dude on the stage, and I was like, oh. Do you guys see that? No,
Yeah.
I know he's like,
No, I
like,
didn't see it.
it's
Yeah.
like I ain't got no problem with homosexuals. Like, bro, Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes, bro, you don't need to say so much.
It feels like an animal. It feels like something else.
Yeah,
like not a
yeah.
human
And
being.
now here is I present to you. Yeah,
a live homosexual in the flesh. This
That's
is a real
fair.
one. Like it seems like you gotta like put it in a cage when you're done
Yeah.
with it. Like you can't just
No.
let your homosexuals run loose.
I'll
in the
take
streets.
that one. I'll take that. I'll take that one.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think it's too awkward. I mean,
Yeah.
this all the guys that refer to women as female all the time is more awkward to me.
Ooh, don't get that one.
Oh
But
my
Dream
God.
missed out tonight. He could have had all his favorite fights.
God, we had
Dream would say, but see truth, the value of truth.
Yeah, Pace, you missed that part. We had a multi-week fight on that very topic on female. Sorry. So, but Fred, but what do you think? What I had to say about that, about changing the culture, like?
I think the culture changes on its own when we have more information. Like, I mean, generally speaking, the things that you said weren't wrong, because the idea of somebody who was retarded was that they or lame, or in the traditional sense of what it was that there was something about them that was infirm, that was believed to be contagious. As we gain more information, things begin to change, but nowhere outside of perhaps medieval times and times before common medicine did you see just heinous attacks of like a mob of people going around to beat up one handicapped person. I mean, things like that just didn't happen, because as you became more involved with modern medicine and modern times, things changed. And I think if you will allow for people to be people on an individual basis, the culture will change on its own, whether it's for good or for bad. In the meantime, treat people like individuals and not like a grand mosaic.
But no.
The
You go.
asylums closed down in the 80s, man. This wasn't that long ago that they were
Yeah,
having giant facilities of people that were getting abused on a regular basis.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, again, during those times, during the 80s, they also thought that they could cure gay people with shock therapy. Things have changed. What I'm saying is that on something as minor as should a person be able to pick up on social cues or not. That's something that is socially insignificant
That,
to the
that's
grand
not.
scheme of things. And if it is going to change where things have to be consensual all the time, the culture will dictate that on its own. But
No,
in
it
the
won't.
meantime,
But it won't.
allow for people
No,
to
no. And that's my disagreement
follow
with you,
people on
Pace.
individuals.
Pace, this is my disagreement with you. Because you're saying that like things will just organically morph and shift, right? Um things nothing is inevitable. These social movements are inevitable. There are people right now who are marginalized who no one is talking about, right? I'm a progressive. I'm like, I dig into these things. I like look for marginalization in people. Like, oh, how can we address these things, right? But I guarantee you there's a marginalized group which we'll find out about in like 30 years that no one ever really paid attention to, and then society will have to like shift around that. But like these things take intentionality. It took intentionality for women to change dating culture, right? Like we had it was women talking to each other during the second wave feminism, like having groups and having conversations with each other to figure out like the concept of date rape. That wasn't
Mm-hmm.
there before, right? We didn't have a word for that. But they shared their experiences. They realized something bad was happening, and it wasn't just like they would just call it before a bad date. Oh, I just had a bad date. Things didn't work out, right? Like, no, this guy actually fucking assaulted me. He raped me. I didn't want it, and I said no, but he did that, right? Or marital rape too, as well. We didn't have that concept as well either. And then there was an intentional change made. People advocated for themselves and they changed the culture, and that's what we want, right? Black people,
Mm.
like the white people had a specific way they were going to treat us, and they were fine because that treating us that way preserved privilege and power for them. They were fine doing that for centuries, right? And they would have kept on doing it, but it took us being specifically intentional, saying this is not okay, and then it changed. So yes, we should be aiming for intentionally changing the culture.
Even in those in that example, it sort of happened on its own outside of America. We've had the conversation before about how England essentially fought a war against the transatlantic slave trade on its own because they became disillusioned with the idea, and other
Uh,
nations became disillusioned to the idea as well. Even in Africa, where in some smaller pockets of Africa still exercise it, but the greater population became disillusioned with the idea, and they changed over time. But
uh,
what I'm saying is, and even in the idea with these things that are naturally against the law, as we begin to find other things that fall under those categories, like rape has always been rape. When we have now looked at these
no,
other
no, has
cases
it?
of things where
No, no,
where
no,
they
it
can
hasn't.
be
It
considered
hasn't.
rape.
That's
No,
wrong.
I'm saying
Rape hasn't always been rape.
the definition of rape has always been rape. Now,
No, no, I'm saying you're wrong.
there has been broader categories. What I'm saying is if you take marital rape
No,
and you
no, no,
put
no,
that into
no.
the
We don't have
category,
to. We don't have to go to marital rape. I'm saying your
well,
basic
if
idea. Hold on. Your basic idea that rape has always been rape is wrong, right? Like this idea of women having bodily autonomy, and like whether a stranger can put their hands on them. I mean, hell, like we don't have to even look to the
yeah,
past. We
under
can
the
look to
concept
other
of the
places
law, it
in
is.
this world, right, where there's still honor killings for women who've been assaulted, because they don't look at it as rape. They look at it as, oh, you must have wanted you let this man on, and then he touched you, and it
Where
violated
do
our
those
honor,
things
and so we're killing the girl.
where do those things occur? Because if you're talking about in greater civilization and civilizations where we have adopted those things as law, it's always been the case. Now,
It hasn't always been the
when
case.
we have things that need to evolve and become part of the law, where we start to recognize that a woman who's married to a man is not property, therefore she can be raped.
And that was a culture
That
change. You mean that culture shift?
evolves as a part
You
of
mean
the
that
law.
cultural shift? That
It's
cultural
well,
shift?
it's still always been a thing. It's just that
It hasn't
those
always been a
cases
thing. You just
were
said it
never
hadn't always been
brought.
a thing. You just said
No,
it
what I'm
changed,
saying
right?
is those things they changed as they became brought before law.
Wow, what? And
And
that was
when
a culture shift. And hold on, the
what?
law and culture. So these things aren't separate things. Yeah, they are related, right? So the law changes the culture, and the culture changes the law. These things are in symbiosis with one another. So like it's not one of the other.
I'm
So
not saying that law changes culture or culture changes law. I'm saying that when we had some cases that were brought before it that were never brought before because remember this how these things go up in our system anyway. They go up to the Supreme Court in these cases. There was never a case prior to the first ones about marital rape. There were never a case that was brought up. But when it was brought up and we looked at it and it followed the same category of the law, okay, there it goes. So now even though it was already included before, it was never tested, it was never tried because there was never a case. Now when
no,
we finally got
I'm
that
about to say
no,
example,
no,
that's not
that's
how
not
the
the
Supreme
case.
Court. I'm about to say it doesn't mean it's the first case to ever be brought up. It's just
Yeah.
the first case to make it to that degree.
no,
Like
what
there,
I'm
And there
what I'm
was
saying
literally a
is when
cultural
it
expectation that a
become
man can do what he wants with his wife. That what happens in the home is the man's business. He's the king of the castle, and so like it's not our business to interfere. That
and
was the understanding,
that's still
right?
kind of the understanding. If we want to be honest, a lot of people say that a woman has not just like woman has an obligation to fulfill her man
Yeah.
sexually in their marriage.
And
Like
would you guys say that comes from like some of that comes from like the religious orthodoxies of like
I think
arbitrate
people are religious, but I
wait,
don't think they're
no,
connected.
hold on.
I don't think it's wholly
It's called
religious.
one second. They're called arbitration, like they're like courts, but they're called arbitration. I don't know what but
Arbitrators?
it's
What?
no, it's like instead like certain things they want to keep within the church. They want to keep within, that community, and they have arbitration for certain, in certain
I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't know the name that
yeah.
you're looking for. But go ahead.
I don't think that's connected because marriage has existed before common religion and will exist after common religion is expired.
Yeah,
I
yes,
don't know if
So
that's
it's
true.
maybe. But think
I
about
don't
it
think
like
so.
this, right?
yeah, marriage is
If you
older
have
than
people
religion.
if wait, hold on. If you have people who are part of a church, right? And let's say you go to your pastor and you say, "Hey, I hit my wife," right? Now if there's no system to hold that man accountable, if there's no way that that woman can hold that man accountable, there might be you know, there might be ways that I don't know.
Well,
Actually, no,
to
never
Prime's
mind.
point about civilization evolving with change of culture. That's sort of where the nuances of law comes from. It's we agree as a greater civilization what's right and what's wrong and what is supposed to be due penance for those wrongs, and we agree on those things. And as we bring those up to there, I mean, that arbitrator just basically you allowing somebody to decide what the punishment should be for whatever it is that was done wrong or right. And
Yeah.
that's just sort of how the culture shifts. I mean, I would agree with Prime on that particular case about how the culture changes based on the evidence and based on what we continue to allow to build into our law.
So go ahead. Bam.
No, I was gonna say, as far as like as far as the way that our court system works, um, it seems that we establish things in law that aren't necessarily popular and aren't necessarily speaking to the culture and will of the people at the time. Like they actually like the Supreme Court. Well, I guess still does if you want to apply it to abortion, but like the Supreme Court is in the business of making really uncomfortable societal decisions that impact culture. Like civil rights at the time wasn't a very popular wasn't a very popular thing. Like what was it was were sentiments growing? Sure. But like the Civil Rights Act passing through wasn't just meeting culture where it already was. It was actually a pretty tough challenge of the reading of the Constitution. Same thing that happened same thing what happened with Loving versus Virginia with interracial marriage. When you talk about like the spousal rape, like again, that's like you say that like, oh, culture just shifted on that, but I don't even know if to this day culture moved that strong. Even outside of religion, I think that a lot of people have really, really strong opinions on what sex needs to look like within the boundaries of a marriage. And like, like, I mean, everyone, like it's hard to find someone who
Well, I
doesn't
mean
talk about the
that
idea of
goes
wifely duties.
back to what you said at the beginning of all, or not the beginning, but you get what I mean when I say it. Is the crutch of any good relationship is the communication, and what Prime has been saying throughout this conversation is setting out the terms of what you expect at the very beginning is part of that. So the concept of what type of sex or what sex should mean to you in your household should be a conversation that should be had before you start engaging in the act.
For sure, but even when like, and that helps. It absolutely helps. But like, some people believe that communication, like, and having the tough conversation means that like no one's allowed to change anymore. And I think that that's the toxic element of that. Like, a woman can say that like, oh yeah, I'm really into sex. I want to do it 4 or 5 times a week. Like that's just, she's raring to go. And maybe then she gets pregnant and maybe then she's like, actually, I don't feel attractive. I feel like I'm bloaty all the time. Like, I don't want you to touch me at all. And you can say that, but we communicated this,
I
and then
mean,
it's
but that goes back again to communication. What, like I said, I always loved watching Jocelyn Toller. She has that same example all the time, where a woman has a child and now she doesn't feel attracted, she feels bloated. Well, it becomes on the onus of the man, if he still loves his woman, to make his woman feel those types of things. I mean, sex is something that's supposed to be intimate and supposed to be reciprocal anyway. So if the onus is there, you- as Don said earlier, if you have that type of game to make them feel comfortable in your presence and make them feel wanted, then you do that. But you don't cross those lines and cross those territories. I mean, if I mean, I'm not saying that I don't want to turn this into a thing about about faithfulness in marriage or whatever, or relationships, but if you can't handle that as a man or a woman, that sex drive changes as people get older and as things happen, then maybe being a relationship just isn't for you.
hmm.
I
Yeah, I don't
think
know.
I think that's something that I think it's definitely something you can work on and learn. But I also think that when you're in a relationship, right, and y'all and like there's an infrequency with sex to the point where where you're starting to question this person's like desire for you. It's starting to affect you in such a way that you're starting to feel it's negatively impacting maybe your self-esteem. I think that that's a cause for concern, and I think that it's worth addressing because I would think that when a woman has a baby, her body goes through she has this flush of hormones, and then it's suddenly all gone. It's suddenly like there's this immediate drastic change, and I think that a strong man is able to he's able to because at those points a woman is very she's going to be very emotional, and I think that a man should have to tap into and tap into that support role where you kind of just you at some point you have to just say, you know what, the reason why this person is acting this way is because it's due to this new changed event, and I need to be sensitive to that, because that's one of the job as a man, as a as a husband or as a boyfriend, that you get your woman pregnant. The way you treat a woman when she's pregnant she'll remember that forever, and especially if you are if you do something, or you are, not supportive in some way, forget you not getting sex afterwards. Like, you know, you got to be
So
understanding.
our friend Aiko gave 100 bits saying rape has historically been wrong because it was theft of another man's property, right? Like that was Like there's a shift
the-
now. A lot of people don't
That's
feel
the
that way
extent.
today, but that's the shift. It was property theft. And like there's intentionality behind that. There was lots of things, right? Like not just the intentions of women, but also like a shift in terms of like
Yeah.
economics and how we just engage with the world and engage with family. Like there's environment that changes, and that can also affect the culture. Like but still there wasn't an intention to say, well, hey, this is wrong, and then women are maybe more than that. But like there has been an evolution here, is the point, and people fought for that. Okay, so we are let's we're like kind of at the end of this, I think. But thanks all for that. Um but yeah, like we kind of went long here. Uh I appreciate everyone who came through. Guys, if you liked this content, consider supporting it by subbing to the channel, gifting bits, gifting sub. Thanks to Bam for gifting that sub earlier. It's really kind of you. But yeah, support this channel so I can keep doing it. We do need your help to make it happen. It doesn't happen without you. I think we only got one sub today. So consider helping us out. Yeah. Consider supporting the channel so we can keep doing it. So I'm gonna give an outro to all these great individuals, but we'll start with our friend Bam. Bam, thanks so much for coming through. This is fun. You came up with the topics, and we didn't even get to the plan topic for today.
We'll say. I'm about to say maybe we'll have another topic next week. Then we'll have two for the first time in forever. But
Yeah.
I usually like the open ones. Yeah, no, super fun. I guess curious as y'all go through y'all's closings. Just what do you, without even having to go into like crazy detail. I'm curious what y'all's overalls, where y'all stand at on the Kendrick Drake saga we just witnessed over the last couple weeks, or I guess really week.
Where do you stand, my brother?
Really simply, put it simply, as far as like culturally and like socially received, Kendrick won. But as far as you looking at the rhymes and looking at what was true or what we seems to be true, I feel like Drake put out better songs. I feel like Family Matters was the best song of the beef. I think it was a more interesting track. You got 3 beat changes. I think the video was
Thanks to
crazy.
Big Queen.
Sorry. Yeah, I think that Kendrick was misinformed on some information, which takes away from the standard. And I also don't know. I don't think that the sexual assault or like the pedo talk, like I don't know. It feels like a low bar, not like low, like oh this is like beneath the belt. I'm just saying like it wasn't really a difficult take to make, and I don't believe there's like much backing it if you actually look into the specifics of it. But that's all I got.
I don't know about that, man.
Let's go to Pace. Pace, thanks as well. Like we've missed having you here, friend. It's really nice having your perspective again.
Oh, it's been nice to be here. I'm not entirely sure if I'm answering a question or if I'm doing closing here.
You do whatever you want.
uh, well, I guess I'll just do closing because I haven't the slightest idea what Bam is talking about. Uh,
Damn.
I don't. If it's about Drake or Kendrick Lamar, I don't listen to their music. I don't listen to hardly any of the music. I find it to be destructive to the black community, and I don't support any of it. But I think we've had a nice conversation today. It's a conversation that I think is one that's probably going to need to be had more by people coming up after our generation because this is a concern for them, especially now that the vast majority of dating, unfortunately, is done online and through apps, and it takes away the ability to and to Don's point earlier, to be able to learn how to pick up on nonverbal cues and nonverbal communication because everything is done via text and everything is done without actually having to to be involved physically and things like that. So I think it's a good conversation to have. I'm interested to see how things pan out for the future of this next generation. Not going to affect me too much though.
Thank you so much. Let's go to our friend Swerve. We haven't had you here for a while too, but we're happy to see you here once again. Yeah, you're a great addition.
Yeah, and as I say every time, Prime, always love being here. Always love when you invite me, getting the chance to engage with y'all. I think that today we talked about things that are really important, as we always do, but especially like things pertaining to the youth, pertaining to like autonomy and respect and culture and things going
Before you
forward.
continue that,
Go ahead.
like he's like talking about respect, and I interrupt him. Narita, thank you for 300 bits. Razor Sharp Gaming, hey, thank you for the resub. Much appreciated, friend. And Aiko, thank you for gifting a sub. And Don Champloo also thank you for gifting a sub. And then Bam for random amounts of bits. Putting us at level 1 hype train, guys. We're at 61% of level 1 hype train. Help us get you a level 2 hype train that's 29%. Yeah, 39. I know that. Shut up. 39% left. Shut up. 39% left. Help us get to a level 2 hype train. Substitute on gift bits or gift subs. That's all helps us out there. Like resubs also count. This is how we power this community. So I appreciate the people who have been supporting, but we always need more. So consider helping out this channel. If you find yourself coming back here again. Yeah. So sorry, Swerve. I will not disrespect you again.
No, you good, bro. You good, brother. We got to keep this thing going, right? Make sure you like and subscribe, my brother. You know what I'm saying? But for real. I mean, when you're talking about things like just the youth, things about respect, I think these are conversations that need be had. Whether or not we agree or disagree, coming to an understanding, like Don said before, getting to know each other, getting to know the truth, whether it's of the individual or of the community. I think this is what makes us greater. I love tackling this kind of shit with y'all. It's important to do, and I love being a part of it. And to answer your question, Bam, Kendrick won that shit all the way around. Not Like Us is the best track that came out of this whole thing. And maybe the takes wasn't all there, but it's a rap battle, bro. It's about the music. So like let's be real. Come on.
Not Like Us is cool, but you're not touching Family Matters. It's like they're not even in the same.
Are you kidding me, bro? Are you kidding me? Family Matters is a great song,
Fantastic.
but Not Like Us is a banger. It's a banger. How many times you play Family Matters? How many times you done heard Not Like Us? It's everywhere.
I done heard both of them probably like 20 times, basically. But that's just because I've been like trying to listen into the specifics of the bars and everything. I don't know. Yeah. It's crazy take. But
Family
Matters everybody has
a great track. Family Matters is a great track. I ain't even gonna hold you though.
Got Don.
Okay, let's go to Don. Thank you as well for being here, Don.
Oh, hold on. Can I say one thing real quick before Don goes?
Absolutely.
Shout out DQ for the what the fuck you call him? Sub, bro. Shout out for the sub.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We almost had 10.
Black woman.
Thank you.
Going in the community. My channel.
I'm sorry, I guess she subbed to Swerve.
Yeah, that's
oh. Okay. I was like, oh, I didn't see it. We have a minute left. Consider supporting the channel. Sub to the channel. Get this hype train going. But yeah, Don. You're muted, friend.
Muted. No one wants to hear you, bro.
Shit. All right, listen. So I want to take my outro to call out Garnitas99 in chat. To say Not Like Us is mid is delusion. That's just absolute delusion. The beat is fire. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But anyway, I'm glad to be here, Prime. As always, thanks for the invite. I think I feel when we talked about some things that were like legit and forced really relied on us all being authentic and honest and speaking from how we really think about shit. And I think this was one of those conversations where we were all it felt like we were all just battling it out, but in a way that was we were kind of getting somewhere. We were converging in a way. And that's what I meant by getting to an understanding is like and things like and a lot of these sensitive topics, I don't expect to convince people out of what they believe. I'm more just trying to understand um like you know what are you willing to do? What are you okay with? These are what I think we're all trying to kind of as we talk, people are trying to feel each other out, trying to get to know like what people are thinking. I think that it would probably definitely help us out to create frameworks in which we can better understand each other, et cetera, et cetera. You can catch me at Don Champlu on Twitch. I'm gonna be doing a lot of art coming up, streaming. So if you want to follow me, it's the same thing in Twitch, Don Champlu. I'm gonna be doing art and drawing, illustration, and showing the process. So come through and
Do y'all have any sketches or
Yeah.
anything related to y'all's project? Then you'll say
I-
that y'all was working on something.
absolutely, there's a lot.
I'm curious. Yeah, I was about to say one
Yeah.
second.
Stop by the server, bro. Stop by Adventure Life, man. We'll fucking
And what do they call it? Animal crew? Animal
Yeah,
gang?
the animal gang house. I gotcha.
Stop by the animal, stop by
Animal
the zoo, bro.
crackers.
stop
Animal
by the
crackers.
zoo.
That's crazy. He's calling us soft and sweet, bro.
No.
That's
All right. Javinium, you're streaming now, right?
yeah, we getting into it, bro. Gotta start that
Let's
Stellar
see if
Blade.
we can search for your channel. They made changes to this. All right.
Appreciate you, Prime, as always.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
gonna we're gonna talk some more about this Drake Kendrick thing.
That'd be cute.
Feel free to do so.
Oh,
So
Oh,
yeah.
just
I about to say I gotta dip out for the night.
Oh, okay.